Happy New Year! Hi there, it's Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, and I've compiled 3 more long winter landscapes that I hope you will enjoy on this first day of 2025. These are older live streams, and if you missed them, I hope you enjoyed them this time through.
Wow, that started quick. Hi, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, along with Sarah.
Hi!
And we are here to do a landscape, and this is a beginner-friendly tutorial, so please don't feel intimidated. It'll be a really good one to paint if you're not, if you haven't had that much experience painting before. And just excuse me for a second. There we go. I just needed to turn my computer around. And we are just going to do some quick, quick. We're going to spend some time here, but it's going to be pretty easy. I didn't really plan what I was going to say before I started talking.
A little more
Usually
time.
I get 30 seconds before the live stream thing kicks in, and I'm like, la-di-da, oh, we're live. If you have any questions, just type the word question in all caps and then type your question regular, because for some reason when everything's in all caps, the YouTube just kicks the comment out like it's spam. And that way Sarah can easily find them. Now sometimes questions have been asked a lot, and in that case what happens is the moderators will answer your question immediately. So Sarah refers the questions to me that haven't been asked before, or ones that stump the moderators. And this video is brought to you by jerrysartorama.com. There's still time to get e-gift certificates if you have an artist on your Christmas list. And I have linked all the products that I'm going to use today in the video description. And anything else I forgot? Anything?
I think you got it all. Sorry, I zoned out there for a second.
We're just zoning. I've been wrapping presents all morning.
I've been prep cooking, and I made a batch of cookies before I came over here, so I'm just like, doo-doo-doo.
Yeah. It is like, yeah, we're on the
tail end of Christmas here. We're getting all the details done.
Yeah, really. I was wrapping presents this morning, and I look at the clock, and it's 10 or 12, and my daughters have an early release day, so I knew they were going to be through the door any minute, and I had to prep the live stream, and the last couple presents aren't looking too magical, but they're wrapped at least. I'm getting some ultramarine blue on my palette. These watercolors are the Lucas watercolors that I bought last year because they had a really good sale on them. They were like, this set was like $114, and so I snagged it. I'm glad I did. They're nice quality paints. I am using burnt sienna and ultramarine, so I can kind of gray down this blue. I want a nice winter sky color, so I don't want it very saturated. And what I'm going to do is wet the top third of my paper. And I'm actually going to switch to a brush that's a little bit more absorbent, so I can really wet that paper well. And any big brush, really. Or you could use a spray bottle, but I want to keep the bottom part of the painting dry for the moment, because we are going to be kind of jumping around a little bit. For the mountains here, they're actually fairly crisp, and there's some white areas there. So I'm going to do the sky and just kind of paint down to the mountains, but I don't want a hard edge, so that's why I'm going to wet a little bit below where I want those mountains. But then we're going to jump down here and work on the foreground, which isn't going to really look like this. It's going to be snowy with some weeds kind of coming through, but I just wanted to show you this to kind of give you an idea of the composition. But we want to keep the bottom part dry for now, so that when we're done putting the sky in, we can jump down here and work on the foreground. And I'm going to do the sky a little bit deeper in color than what the picture is. Remember, it does dry a little bit lighter. And it can help if you tip your paper a little bit. I'm going to turn that light. I feel like I was getting a little bit of glare. Sometimes I just like, if I have a really wet background, I like to just kind of put the paint at the top, and notice it's really watery. It's kind of like, I wouldn't even call it skim milk consistency. It's even thinner than that, and I'm just letting that paint kind of drizzle down on its own. I can help it along with horizontal strokes if I need to. I'm going to blunt my brush off here on a paper towel, and I'm going to kind of come through and pick up the leftover. Oh, right. So that it's not really concentrated. It's a very soft winter sky. The winter skies tend to be more white. If you want to lift out a couple clouds, you can. And to do that, you simply crumple up a dry paper towel, and you can lift them out wherever you want. I wouldn't go too crazy. Just a few. It's, they're not going to show up that much anyway because the sky is so light. Okay, so now we are going to work in the foreground. I'm just going to shift this up a little bit so you can see the bottom of my paper really well. And I did adjust my camera, so hopefully you're getting a high quality, kind of more in focus version here. And I'm grabbing a number 8 round. And I'm going to actually use that color I just had to kind of sketch on the dry paper where I want my snowy kind of ledge to be. And I'm working on dry paper. I haven't wet this yet, and I am just going to paint some snow shadows basically. So I'm painting around the highlights in the snow. I know it's not super dark. You want to keep it pretty light. Now I'm going to add a little color because the picture that we used was very monochrome, so I'm going to grab a little, let's see, I'm going to look at my color key, because when you have so many paints, in fact, I would recommend you going for a smaller set, maybe a full pans, because then it's easier, like if you want to get a big brush into the paint, and you get more paint in like the set of 24 full pans, or you pay a lot less for a set of 24 full pans than 48 half pans, so it's kind of a better value too. I'm going to go with magenta, which is this one right here. On its own, it's really strong, so I'm going to put it into that kind of grayed down mix. Add a little ultramarine to that. So I'll end up with kind of a mauve color. And I'm going to add some of that in here too. And I like to draw the eye through the canvas with kind of, or the paper rather, kind of like zigzaggy. And we're going to have some more diagonals coming through with some trees. And I just feel like it gives you a really nice composition. You can always put more shadows in the snow too. We can't take them away, so you don't want to go too overboard with them. And I want to have some kind of foliage coming out of some of these like gullies. Like the shadows are going to be kind of like where you have dips in the snow, and that also would probably be where you would have your like foliage growing out of. So I'm going to grab some olive green. It's got a really pretty olive green. Make a little puddle of it on your palette. So when you're using half pans like this, you're going to find your round brushes are a lot easier to get your paint out of the palettes. I'm going to do a puddle of burnt sienna on its own. I'm going to do a puddle of ultramarine on its own. I'll move it over here. And let's do a puddle of magenta on its own, sticking with those colors. And let's grab some yellow ochre while we're at it. So I'm going to grab the magenta and the yellow ochre. And don't be shy if you do have questions, if you're confused. Oh, I'm actually going to try the gold ochre. That's kind of pretty. That's a little different. I think it's fun to throw in a different pigment than you're used to once in a while. We'll add that in there too. Okay, and I'm going to stick with the number 8 round, but if you feel like you'd rather have a liner or something smaller, then you can go right ahead and do that. I am going to grab some of the burnt sienna and just kind of flick up some grasses and weeds, branches, that sort of thing. And then I'm going to drop in some of the olive and ultramarine. Yeah, let's throw a little charge of magenta in there. I did clean my brush before the magenta because I didn't want that to get too dull. You can always make something more dull. You can't always brighten it back up again. And because the palette here is so kind of monotone, I wanted to really get some nice bright colors in here. I'm looking out the window and seeing a lot of that monotone.
Yes. More monotone, theoretically, later on today.
Yeah. I saved a meme once. Somebody shared it, and then I shared it on my Facebook, and it was Bob Ross in front of a white canvas, and it says, "You see how I layered the snow on top of more snow?" And it was just like a white canvas. I should add that. If I can find it, I'll add it to the blog post so you guys can enjoy that little Maine humor. And this is kind of one of those ways you can kind of get those spontaneous effects that, sometimes you do a painting and you're like, oh, I just love what happened there. I wish I could recreate it, but I have no idea how I did it. This is kind of one of those ways you can recreate those kind of spontaneous watercolor melding and that beautiful kind of blending that looks like it didn't really have any human help. And when you want to darken something, try going in with either pure color or a color that you've mixed on your palette. You don't want to have to mess with it too much. You just kind of want to drop it in and let it do its thing. Mixing on the paper gives you really pretty, vivid results.
Daphne Price, if you are new to watercoloring, should you begin learning using pencils or a paint palette?
I think it really depends on what you want. I would probably say paints just because they're a little more versatile. If you feel like they're kind of like out of control, the paints are out of control and you don't like that, then use what you want to use. That's the most important thing. I'm going to switch to a liner because I feel like I'm not getting the long loose lines that I want.
Catherine Fail, how do you think the Lucas paints compare to Rembrandt paints?
I feel like Rembrandts are a little bit more luminous, and the Lucas are a little bit more earthy. They're not. It almost feels like they don't have quite as much gloss to them. Like maybe they don't have quite as much gum arabic. Maybe I think they might be one of those paints that don't use Oxgall. I think Lucas might be one that doesn't use Oxgall. But I didn't have any problem with it flowing. If you see here how the paints are flowing and melding together, I mean, I obviously didn't have any problem with that. So maybe somebody can hop over and check for me and see if Lucas is the ones that don't have Oxgall added and let us know in the chat. That would be really helpful. Or if somebody happens to know, maybe Joe Maskey might know.
Joe's here, and Liquid Colors here, Eve's here, Bev Roberts.
Oh, I'm sure one of them know.
Grace is here, so we'll probably get the answer.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Five different times. Everyone's scrambling. So yeah, they definitely, like, if you look at the pans too, they're going to look more matte, and the Rembrandts look a little bit more glossy just in the pans themselves. So yeah, I believe the Rembrandts are a little bit higher quality of a paint. I think, but the Lucas are definitely the best bang for your buck, I think. And that's a product that Jerry's has on sale fairly frequently. I think they're the only distributor in the United States of Lucas products, so they tend to have the best deals. Like when I saw these for $114, I was like, I can't resist. And I felt so guilty that I gave them to my husband. I said, Jason, I don't want anything for Christmas, but could you wrap these up for me?
Surprise!
It was one of the best Christmas presents I got.
Hey, that's okay.
Then that was nice because then I got to look forward to it because I think it was like November when I ordered them last year, and I hemmed and hawed. I really like the look of these colorful kind of branches coming through. If you don't like it, of course, you're painting, your rules. Anytime I do something that you're like, ooh, I don't think that's for me, don't do it. It's probably going to be a little weird looking to figure out how this is going to come together too, because it is probably a little bit odd if you're new, especially. And if you're unsure about this part and you don't want to paint this yet and you just want to see how the rest of the painting comes along, you can do that too. You can put this in later. Just keep in mind that if you want snow here, you're going to have to make sure you keep some white area out. But I didn't want to do a drab snow scene. I've got enough drab snow happening.
I know.
Really. I like the snow. It's pretty when it first falls, but then like after the salt trucks have been out and it's all gotten kind of...
Everything's been plowed and shoveled and sanded.
Yeah, everything's gray. Alright, I'm going to dry this. And then we're going to work on our mountains. So basically I just need to have the sky dry at this point. But if you wanted to take a break and, you know, that's always a good idea when you're painting like on your own at home, is to take a break when you're waiting for something to dry instead of rushing it with a heat tool or the hair dryer, just because it gives your eyes a chance to rest, and then you come back and you see the painting how it really looks and not how you think it looks. How many people do we have painting with us today?
We have 239 watching right now.
Wonderful.
Let's see. Cassandra Walton. I am new to watercolor painting, but I'm looking for cheap watercolor paints, brushes, and paper to start me off that I can find at my local Walmart or Michael's. Any suggestions?
Sure, Cassandra. She's looking for, I don't know how well the microphone's picking up with this going on, so I'm just going to repeat the gist of her question. She's just looking for inexpensive supplies she can find at her local, did she say
Walmart or Michael's?
Okay. I would go with, if you can find Cotman. That's usually sold probably at Michael's. I don't think you'd be able to find it at Walmart. At Walmart, though, if they sell the Prang brand, that's a great. It's like a little. It looks like a little kid's set of watercolor paints, but they're bright and transparent, and they're fabulous. And they're about $3.50. So you know, for under $5, you can get those. I would get a good quality paper. I know that Walmart has a Canson XL. And that would be all right to start you off in a painting like this. That would be absolutely fine. Any painting where you need to scrape or scrub, that paper is not going to deal too well with that. But the Strathmore 400 or the Aquabee that they sell at Michael's would be fine to use. I think that would suit you very well. And then for brushes, these right here are Royal 9 Nickel Majestics, and I know that Michael's has them, and they might also have Princeton. Like the Princeton Value line is really good, or the Princeton Snap line, and it's very inexpensive. And also, if you're a beginner and using student paints, having a synthetic brush like this is going to introduce less water into your pans, into your watercolor paints, so you're going to get more color and less water, and that will help you achieve more vibrant results like this, but with a budget paint. So, just don't. You're better off to get a couple good quality things than to get a bunch of crappy stuff. So, you know, just keep those brands in mind, and you can definitely, you know, spend under $20 and get yourself set up.
And Michael's always runs their coupons.
Oh, yes.
And beginning, and they usually, like, around Christmas break or right before semester, if you have colleges anywhere nearby, a lot of times they'll have good sales on their art supplies for students who are taking art classes.
Oh, yeah.
So always keep your eye out on that. Because when I worked at AC Moore, every year, before a new semester started, we always had big sales on our art supplies.
Right.
Because we get the art students coming in to buy stuff. So.
Right. And you don't have to be an art student to get those deals. They sometimes offer an extra deal if you are an art student, but you don't have to. So I've mixed the burnt sienna and the ultramarine again to get myself a nice gray. If you want, and I don't think that, so now here's where another reason you might want to break from a reference photo. When I look at this, I see the undertones as kind of a greenish gray, but I really don't want to bring green in here because I think it's going to kind of it's going to give me more of a spring look than a winter look. So I'm just going to stick with that ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mix. I am going to start kind of sketching the mountaintop here.
Daphne Price, forgive my lack of knowledge, but what do you mean by the palette is more versatile than pencils, and what is a good brand of palette to begin with?
I mean, like paints in a palette. It could be a white dish. It doesn't have to be like a fancy palette, but because you can have 6 colors and you can mix pretty much anything you want. Versus pencils, where you kind of need more to work with. Otherwise, you're gonna wear those pencils down to nubs just trying to mix colors. I would get a palette of probably no more than 12 colors. Like the Lucas set of 12 is really nice. They even have the studio version, which is very inexpensive. It's about $11 or $12. And that would get you going with all the colors you need to mix whatever you want to mix. And it's just a little bit more versatile than trying to mix all those colors from the pencils. So there's kind of a couple layers of mountain here that I'm just trying to sketch in really lightly with my brush. You could also do this with a pencil. So that when I go in with a flat brush, I will have a little bit more freedom. I won't feel like I'm trying to make it all up as I go.
In Liquid Color, got back about the Oxcal in Lucas.
Yes.
And she says, I'm not 100%, but their literature references adding synthetic Oxcal to the paper if needed. So my guess is that the paints themselves don't contain it.
Okay, yeah, I think that might be the case. Although I haven't had an issue with them not flowing well. So, just kind of take that for what it's worth. But they're a fantastic paint. I find them very reliable. I haven't had any issues with anything fading that I painted last year with them that I've had around my studio downstairs with all the lighting that I have. So here what I'm going to do, I like to use a flat, and especially I like to use, and I didn't list it, I'm sorry, but any 1-inch flat synthetic that is not designed to be like a fake fur brush is going to be good for this, because I do not want a lot of water here. I want crisp lines. I'm working on dry paper. I'm working with the chisel edge of the brush. And then I'm just kind of pulling down. So I'm basically, again, painting the rocks around the snow. And go easy, because you can always put more rocks in, but you can't put the snow back in. The snow is the white of the paper. I mean, I guess you could with white paint, but I think it would really it kind of take away some of the look you have here. Now I think I might actually, now that I'm seeing I have some bigger areas where I'm going to have shadow, I think I might play around with adding some color into those while they're still wet. I'm going to grab some of this mixed purple. I'm going to tone it down a little bit because that's a little vibrant, and I'm going to add some of that right in there. Just let it flow. Yeah, we'll try a little bit of the green, but mixed with some ultramarine just so it's not too... Got to keep it nice and cool. Now I'm going to have to go back in with a brush and help it because I had the synthetic brush here, it was not, where I went in with the mimic brush, which is supposed to act like fur, so it's more absorbent. When I went with that, it put more water down, more paint down than what I had, so it wanted to give me like a blossom almost immediately. So I'm going in and just kind of dragging it to normalize that paper. So think of the areas of the mountain that would be grabbing, where the kind of the rocks would push through, and then you've got the little parts where the snow would kind of settle into the little gullies. You don't want anything too bright or too dark. This is background, and we're going to be putting a layer of trees over them, so we don't want anything that's going to be really difficult to cover up with a silhouetted tree. But we are going to be mixing a really dark color for the trees, so it won't be too difficult to cover up. Just doing taps with the chisel edge of my brush for these kind of smaller, flatter parts of the mountain where it's leveling out a little bit more. And twist your brush around so you get uneven marks. Twist and tap. I'm going to mix up a little bit more paint, but I'm mixing it with a round because the rounds go into your palette a lot easier. You want a cooler gray, so just a little bit more on the blue side. I blotted my brush on a paper towel. I want to darken that a little bit because I've got kind of an outline from the my original sketch with the brush. And then if I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a blossom, I can go in with the flat and just kind of drag it.
in liquid color, the Lucas paints are vegan except for their PBK9 colors, so no oxgal.
Oh, okay,
according
good to know.
to Jackson's.
Good to know. So PBK9 would be a bone black, I believe. So made from bones. So I'm drawing this layer, and I'm going to go in with one more layer, just kind of glaze over some of the darks with some more gray, so I get that kind of two-tone shadow. We don't want a super ton of detail because those mountains are going to be pushed back. Okay, and I think I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. Maybe I'll go with this number Foreground. We'll see how that does, because it's not a real pointy one, so I don't think I'll get too much detail this way. I think I can just kind of like smush and wiggle it around and get some interesting texture. You were a fast typer, Sarah.
Sometimes.
Clickety-clack.
Today I am. I'm all warmed up from cooking earlier, so my fingers are all nimble.
You can always go back in later if you decide that, oh, I want a little bit more, stones poking through the snow. You can always do that later. It's, since we're not working with super, super dark colors, it's going to be easy to, to go back in. You can even like wait to wash your palette, give your eyes a chance to rest after you do your painting, and then come back and you'll know whether, if you need to add something or darken something. It's difficult to get the white back, so when in doubt, just hold off a bit. All right, I think that's all I'm going to do for that part of the mountains for now. And now I am going to work on the trees here. Oh, I do want to warm this part in here up a little bit with some magenta, very softly. I'm going to grab just a little bit of magenta there. I think I'll put just a smidgen of the burnt sienna in it because it is a little neon on its own. Oops, did I grab the right color? Okay, that's the thing with so many colors. You have to be careful when you're doing like a limited color painting that you don't grab the wrong color. So it's really important to make a swatch. Look how watery this is. This is like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a popsicle melted. It's like that kind of. And let's go in with this, just to add a little bit of that to the foreground snow to show that it's closer to us, a little bit warmer. And then I will dry this. A little bit of the violet in there too.
People can hear me typing.
Yeah, somebody was saying that last week. It really stands out. All right, any questions while I'm drawing here?
We're all caught up at the moment. That doesn't mean something can't pop up here momentarily.
I know, it's a 30-second delay. I'm going to have a sip of my cold tea.
Cold tea.
You just want to make sure that, because if you have any wet areas in the trees and you go to paint, in the mountains, and you go to paint your trees, then that's going to wick into any areas that are wet. So you want to make sure that that your paint's only going to move where you want it to move. All right, so now we need to mix up some nice rich darks on our palette. And we're going to start off with making big, juicy puddles of color. And all these colors are going to mix together, so it's alright to work on top of areas that you've already been working.
Domingo, in the new children's book Lindsay illustrated, were those done in watercolor, pencil, or digitally modified?
Those were watercolor and colored pencil together. So the first layer was watercolor, and then I went over it with colored pencil, Prismacolors actually. Some magenta. So if you were using like a student grade paint that didn't release quite as well with a wet brush, you'd want a stiffer brush because that way you wouldn't damage your paintbrush digging in trying to get more color. So just keep that in mind when you're painting. So because I want these trees to be really dark, I do not want to do them in water first. I'm going to go right in with paint and do them. I'm going to mix these two together to get a nice dark base. And I'm going to turn my painting kind of upside down, because I want to make my base of my trees kind of be down here, just beyond that ridge, a snowy ridge. And that will help me define that area. Now I think I will pull one up really high, higher than what I have in the reference photo, and I want it to go up into the sky a little bit. That's going to give us some scale. And I'm painting it upside down, but I will turn it around in a minute.
Madness, upside down painting.
Well, before, because I used to hate to edit, and I really didn't have the extra time to spend on video editing, so I actually would paint upside down, so I wouldn't have to like flip it around in video software. So like if you go on my channel, some of my first watercolor videos were done upside down.
Oh, yeah. Pascalito, how do you imagine which colors to use in your painting that aren't in the photo? My problem is I always try to make it look exactly like the photo.
The key is painting from life. So anytime you can get out and paint from nature, that's going to teach you how things really look, and it will so that you can have options. Now, I actually recently picked out these books that I regretted not buying when I was younger, when they came out. They're the Artist Photo Reference series, and I check every once in a while on Amazon, and usually they're crazy expensive because they're out of print. But I got lucky a couple weeks ago, and I found all of the ones I didn't have, which I only had one, so actually it was all of them, between $5 and $25, and so I snagged them up. And what's neat about those books, if you ever find them in like a used bookshop, or maybe you're lucky and you find them on Amazon and they're crazy expensive, is that they tell you how to use reference photos, which is something that is some information you don't get a lot. And basically, well, you can take the colors from one photo, take the composition from another photo, take the sky from one photo, take the mountains from another photo, take the foreground from another photo, and then I think through observation, when like the more you start noticing things in real life, because you're training your eyes, you're gonna realize how to adapt the lighting so it looks like they all came from the same scene. And it's observation, just try to pay attention to your surroundings when you're out in nature. Any chance you get to paint outside, especially if it's at a different locale than you're used to, take advantage of that and do it. And then you'll start to notice like kind of like undertones of colors, and when you start kind of pushing those undertones, that's when you get some really interesting results. And you can see the different colors of the sunlight, how the sunlight can turn the branches red or orange, and then you can maximize those undertones so that you get a really dynamic picture. So short answer is paint more, and you'll get braver, and you'll understand where you can kind of push your colors a little bit.
Amber Pomranen, what would you recommend for gouache watercolors, specifically looking for a white for snow on pine trees?
I would go with Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It is a white gouache. It's extremely opaque, or you can thin it down if you want to for more translucent looks. That's what my go-to. But if you don't have access to that, look for a titanium white and not a Chinese white. That will be your, or zinc white. You want titanium white because that's going to be your most opaque. You don't want transparent mixing white or anything like that. So I'm having fun just adding colors to the wet tree and just kind of letting the colors float. And just be careful not to paint over your foreground. So the key here is to keep a wet edge. So as I'm working across, I'm making sure that I keep a wet edge. If I go next to a damp area with a really wet brush, I'm going to get a blossom. So I couldn't have started the whole row and then worked up as I wanted to. I needed to kind of just start that bottom ridge where I knew I was going to work immediately so that I wouldn't get a back run.
Crystal Tillman, can mixing different grades of watercolor paints, student versus artist or brands, cause problems?
No, it shouldn't. In fact, a great way to decide whether you want to invest in a color is to try it in its student grade form first. Well, I feel like I want to bring some of that color in there, actually. So I just dragged down a little bit of that color. I thought that was kind of pretty, and I wanted to bring that zigzag composition, so I'm like, well, I could kind of bring that down in through here and glaze over some of those colors I have there and just kind of tie it in together a little bit. I like that. And the more you paint, the braver you'll get with choices like that. You could even sprinkle some salt into this while it's really wet and get some snowflakes happening.
Whoa. Whoa.
I know, you can get a little crazy with your bad self.
Sheer madness.
Right. Bring some more trees over here. And I will start from a different color each time. And that way it'll assure that I'll end up with a really unique mix. And I don't want everything homogeneous. Homogeneous. My brain goes faster than my mouth sometimes. It's like, I know the word I want to say! But whoops, it's already out there and it wasn't the right one. I know what I mean. And I like to tip my paper so I can kind of guide how the paint's going to flow. It can also keep that wet edge I was talking about so that I can keep adding to it, adding next to it, and not have a back run. So tipping that paper is helpful. Just it's like the technique of a graded wash or gradient wash or controlled wash, which I go into in my essential tools and techniques for watercolor painters. If you do feel like you need a little extra help in the watercolor department, that course is designed to get you up and painting in about 5 hours. Or there's 5 hours worth of video there, so I mean, you can do it at your own pace, but it's designed to have everything you need to know to get going and start off on the right foot. I do have a coupon code in the video description today for that if you want to give it a try. Please don't feel obligated to purchase anything, but if you felt like you needed a little extra help along the way, that resource is there.
Daliala, are there any paints you like in a student line but not in a professional line of the same brand, or vice versa?
Oh, that's a great question. Not really. I like Rembrandt, for instance. I love the Van Gogh line. I really like the professional line. Lucas has an excellent student line. I honestly think some brands, their student line is as good as their professional line. Because the thing is, if they bothered to have a student line, they're not going to make a crap. If they have a professional line too, they're not going to make a crappy student line, because that's, you know, their student line is basically advertising their professional line. If their student line is no good, why would anybody try their professional line? Like for instance, Sennelier, I can barely tell the difference between their student line and their professional line. The downside is there's only like 24 colors or something. There's not as many, which is common with most student grade paints. But if you gave me those palettes and I didn't know, you just gave me the pans outside of a palette, I wouldn't be able to tell. for most colors. I don't think I'd be able to tell you which one they came from. So, gosh, I really can't think of one where I like the student line and didn't like the professional line. I think once you get into a brand of paint that carries a student and a professional line, at that point, they're a pretty reputable line of paint, and they're going to be pretty decent, I think. That was a really good question, though.
Yeah, well, that's not one that's been asked before.
Yeah. Now here I think I want to have some nice bright, more of a bright tree, and then I'm going to let it dry, maybe sneak a darker one in behind it over here. So I've started off with that olive and just kind of let it float up. Maybe I'll even add a little bit of that golden ochre color that we haven't used. We just got a little bit of it out, but we didn't really use much of it. It's kind of a pretty color. It's like it's almost a little bit reddish. You can use a yellow ochre though. If you don't have it, use yellow ochre. It'll be just fine. I don't know exactly what I want to do there, but I just know I want it to be a little bit brighter. Thinking about maybe even dripping a little bit of magenta in there and letting it float. Maybe I'll see if I can sneak a few darker trees behind there. If I keep it tipped up like this and paint upside down, I think that I can. I think I'll start at the top of the trees, just so I get an idea of where I'm going to go with them. Excuse me. I was so tired last night. I went to bed at 9:30.
I was right behind you. I think I was in bed at like 10 minutes after 9.
I couldn't wait the kids. I was like, I'm gonna get all my Christmas wraps. I was feeling kind of a little bit behind the times. I had done some Christmas shopping kind of last minute. Well, not last minute, but I had planned to go Christmas shopping because I was going to be in town yesterday. And I'm like, okay, I just want to get everything wrapped, make sure I know what I have, and make sure that I have everything I need. And I made the mistake of laying down on the couch waiting for the kids to get ready for bed.
That would do it.
And Jason's like, well, why don't you just go to bed? I'm like, I gotta wrap presents. He's like, why do you have to wrap them tonight? I'm like, good point, I'm going to bed.
I'm like, I don't know, why do I?
Why do I go to bed?
No.
Wise. So I wrapped this morning and I had much more energy than I would have last night. I would have been crabby wrapping presents last night.
Oh, yeah.
I was tired. I don't like to do stuff when I'm tired.
It would not have been as enjoyable as it probably was this afternoon.
Right. I've been really into all those health documentaries on Netflix.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so...
What are you learning?
What
are we all doing wrong?
I'm learning that I am so wise to be on a plant-based diet is what I'm learning. But then again, I could be just, watching the documentaries that tell me what I want to hear.
That's true.
I'm not 100% sure there. But... yeah, big health quest. Big health quest next year. Well, I'm pretty healthy, but I think that we, as a society, and definitely our family, relies on too much processed foods, from granola bars to frozen pizzas and junk like that because it's convenient.
Mhm. Yeah.
So.
Well, and for how many years we're all told low fat, low calorie, low fat, low calorie, and that's what all that packaged stuff is,
Yep.
which is, excuse my language, a chemical shitstorm.
Yep. Wow, that was some strong language.
That's why I said, pardon my language, chemical storm.
Yeah, and I think of how I used to eat before I had kids. It was all beans and rice and oatmeal and just super simple things. Mm-hmm. And I rely on veggie burgers a lot and the veggie nuggets and other things that are pre-made and convenient and healthier than their meat counterparts, but
well, I would question that because I think if you went through and looked at the ingredients in some of them compared to just getting, if you bought some good beef from a reliable farmer,
That's true.
You know, I'm not saying all brands, but I bet if you compared some of the brands to, like, you know, you go to a farm where the cows have names and are grass-fed and no chemicals and hormones. I wonder what would technically be healthier.
Yeah. Anytime you do something to make something last a long time is putting chemicals and.
But I've noticed, I mean, since I started cutting out all that processed stuff, like, I feel so much better, and when I do go and eat that stuff, my body is like, why are we digesting this garbage?
And you look great. I mean, you have lost a lot of weight. And then my body's
like, no, we're going to make you pay for this decision.
Mm-hmm. The bill will come due.
Domingo, what is the strategy for a night scene where the trees would be lighter than a darker background? Would that need a frisket?
Well, I suppose you could. I think I would work light to dark. Paint your lightest areas first and then keep layering over the darker areas. If you don't have to, preserve out any bright white, I think that's how I would do it. All right, it's nice colorful trees there. I'm happy with that. So I think I want to work in the foreground a little bit just to bring a little bit more detail to that. But I'm really liking the colors I have happening in there. And I'm really liking the mountain. I covered up all my pinkish snow. If you wanted to leave some more of that showing, you absolutely can. In fact, it will give you more depth in your scene if you do that. But I am going to go ahead and maybe put a few more details. And I think I'll switch to my liner just so I don't get too carried away. So I'll just pick up any sort of sludge I have left over on my palette to do this. And I'll start by adding a little bit of dark towards the bottom of a shadow area, and then just kind of drag up some grasses. So any colors that you've used so far are fair game for this. And you don't want to cover up everything. You just want to layer on some details. In fact, I want to get that gold back a little bit. That's a pretty color we didn't use very much. This is not a metallic gold. It's just an irony gold, kind of like your yellow ochre. With different colors once in a while, after you've been painting for a while, just because it gives you a little bit of surprise. And you can even wet the bottom of the area you want to go in with some more color if you want to encourage it to blend a little bit more. This is the magenta and the yellow, golden yellow mix. Any place you feel it's a little dull, go in and add some other colors. This is your landscape. You can do whatever you like. And I feel like I might want to warm up the snow a little bit here with some of that pink, especially since we lost all of it over by the mountains. So I'm going to go in with just that watery magenta. I think it was magenta with a little bit of that golden yellow. And I'm going to give this a dry and then see what else I need to add for any darks. So if you have any questions while I'm drying, go ahead and ask it. I'm getting a little bit of a bloom here. If you can see where the trees were damp and I went in and snuck in those trees behind it. So I'll probably have to do a little bit of adjusting in there to In fact, I might want to blot a little bit now, so I can correct that. So I got a little bit of a bloom there, but it's not going to be a big deal. It'll be fun to look at the reference photo when we're done and see how different we've made it.
It's pretty different. Amber Pomeranian, have you used Aquaboard before?
Yes, I have. That's a product by Ampersand. It's a like a hardboard panel, kind of like masonite, that's coated with a almost like a watercolor ground, and you paint on it, and just like you would like a canvas or whatnot, but you use your watercolor paint, and it's really easy to lift back to pure white. I personally didn't care for it that much. I prefer paper, but if you want to be able to white back completely to that white of your paper, you want a more robust surface, and you want to maybe do a watercolor painting that you can then varnish and not have to frame under glass, then it's a good solution. Did she have a specific question about Aquaboard? Or?
No, she was thinking about getting some, so she didn't know if you've used them.
I have. It wasn't my cup of tea, but it doesn't mean that you won't love it.
Buy a couple, see what happens.
Okay, now I'm looking at this, and I think I want my mountains to be a little cooler. So I'm actually going to mix up a really watery mixture of kind of light bluish gray. So I'm going to clean off a little area in my palette where you can see it. Grab a little of the ultramarine, quite a bit of water. I'm going to add a little bit of this mix that's kind of purpley gray. Add a little bit of green to it. There we go. And I think I will switch to a flat brush so I can just kind of drag that color on. See if I have anything that's like a small angular actually, because I don't want it to have too much water. I'm going to go with this Aqualon. You can use a flat or an angle. I just wanted this because it's a golden Taklon bristle, which doesn't hold that much water and paint, so I know that I'm not going to get too aggressive of a shadow in here. Let's see, I can just kind of very gently darken that up. But it's going to be really hard for me to go overboard because this just won't hold too much. I think that's looking a lot better. Just that little bit of shadow and coolness. It helps. It's going to help push it back because I felt like I really compressed the depth of field when I lost this band of the warmer colored snow. You can also lift up if you have anything that's too sharp. You can lift it up with a brush like this because the bristles are a little bit tougher. They can take kind of scrubbing your paper a little bit, and you can soften. You can soften an edge if you want to. I want to soften some of those edges I sketched in with my round brush because they were a little too dark. And since we used ultramarine blue and burnt sienna as our colors, they're very liftable. So it's easy for me to soften that. If you want to remove more paint, just grab your paper towel and you can blot it. It can actually look like you've got a little fog back there too when you do that. It's hard to see exactly what you need to do sometimes until you're right at the end and you kind of see all the elements together. And this definitely was just too sharp. There, to me that looks a lot better. And now another brush I want to introduce you to is, and you probably, some of you who have been following my channel for a while are familiar with a dagger. The reason I like them is because you can, excuse me, you can get some really interesting lines, and they're all going to be a little different. So I'm going to make my nice dark with the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna. I'm going to grab a little of that violet that I mixed with the magenta and the ultramarine blue. I'm going to go in and throw in kind of some lost and found branches on some of these. Especially the ones that would be a little bit warmer, because they would be closer to the viewer. And I kind of want to paint around. I want to have kind of like a little tuft of foliage in the foreground that I'm kind of painting around, so I can do that. Oops, there we go. It's easier to drag the color towards me than to push it. So I think I want these to be their own kind of shape, so I'm just going to pull up some shrubs. There's so many decisions you make in the course of a painting. Over here in that green one, I think I want to make some kind of red branches kind of coming in front, and I'm going to use burnt sienna and magenta for that. Maybe a little bit of gold. Get those white areas too. And then I want to darken like this little section of trees in here. The bloom pretty much disappeared when I dried it, after I blotted it and dried it. I want to get kind of dark with that, so I'm going to make a violet with the ultramarine and magenta. I'm going to add a little bit of green to that and see what that does. That little part I want to push back a little bit duller and darker. And I like how these little sparkles of light from where the paper was dry are kind of showing through. I think that gives it a little bit of a life. So don't worry about having it perfect and getting rid of all that, because that can really give you some interest. A little bit over here behind that tree. A bit more blue to darken it up. We're just about ready to wrap this painting up, I think. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat now. I will be doing one more dry of this just so you can see it finished and dried. But we are pretty much done with this, I think. A little more blue here. Alright, I'm going to dry this. And it's totally fine to use a hair dryer. I just happen to use a heat tool because I always have one plugged in for stamping projects, but you don't need to have it if you don't want one. Quiet group today.
It is. There's been a lot of chat going on, but pretty quiet overall as far as questions.
Well, take that to me that I explained everything well, so we didn't need to.
Right.
I'm just doing a little negative painting down here while I dry. I'm pulling in some shadows, so just to give a little more shape to this kind of bunch of kind of grasses I have growing there. Old dry grasses. I hope you guys give this a try. It's a nice, fun, and easy tutorial that will let you play with kind of on the paper mixing, and lets you get some of those really pretty spontaneous melding of colors. It's really a good exercise for playing with shadows.
Mary Shen, what yellow ochres do you recommend that are not opaque?
Well, if you want one that's not opaque, try a raw sienna instead of yellow ochre. Raw sienna will be more transparent. The Winsor & Newton raw sienna is pretty transparent. Opaque by its nature is a little more opaque. Or if you look for a yellow ochre that uses the pigment PY42 instead of PY43, PY42 is synthetic and it's going to be more transparent, because it probably doesn't contain the iron that the mineral that the original one does. So there you go. Is that look done to you, Sarah?
I think it is. I think if you mess with it, you're going to overwork it.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is something that should really be just kind of loose and free and fun. I want to thank our sponsor, jewelriesartorama.com. If you are in need of any of the supplies I used today, check them out. They usually have great prices on the Lucas paints. They do have great prices on the Lucas paints. Sometimes you get a super sale on them. That's when their price goes to the lowest possible price. And I think they're a great paint for the money. They are less expensive than a lot of the other name brand paints. So if you're in the market for some high quality watercolors, give them a try. I really enjoy them. I should use them more often. But that said, if you don't need anything, don't go buy it just because I, said I liked it. Buy what you need. And also, if you are in the mood for any watercolor classes of mine, I do have a coupon code in the video description so you can save 35%. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting. And we are live here on the Frugal Crafter YouTube channel. I'm Lindsay, and in the studio with me today again is Sarah.
Yay, I'm over my turkey coma.
After a little brief vacation.
Yeah, unintended, but whoops.
That's okay. November was quite a crazy month, so that's fine. Today we are going to paint a snowy landscape. I have it taped in front of me, but I'll bring it over so you can see. We got beautiful colors, the same colors that we did in our frosty fall landscape that was really popular a couple weeks ago. So we're going to bring back those colors again, and we are going to paint with those. We're going to sketch together. And before we begin that, I just want to thank our sponsor, jerry'sautorama.com. You can find all the supplies that we use today from Jerry's, and there is a supply list in the video description if you need it. We're going to start by putting on a horizon line about, I would say, a quarter of the way up on your paper. Just kind of go straight across. And I'm going to draw fairly dark so you can see it, but just kind of keep yours a little on the light side. And I might have to tip my board because we're filming up in the office today, so it's just a different setup. I'm usually standing and looking down at my workspace, so I'm sitting at my desk right now. And we're going to have a road, and we kind of have this thing called one-point perspective going on, and I don't want to put it quite smack dab in the middle. I'm just going to have it slightly off to the side, so kind of over here. I'm just putting a point just so I know where my road is going to. And then I'm going to come out from there a little bit, and I am going to draw an angled line going towards the corner there. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to bring it up this way. I also want to put a little house over here because I think it's kind of a nice little touch. So I'm doing a little peaked roof there. chimney. I'm just going to pull that back. I think it might be a barn. And then there's actually a little fence in front of the house, so kind of wrapping around the property. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Now, when you're doing one-point perspective, pretty much everything that you draw is going to fade back to that point. So when I'm putting the top of that fence in, I'm just making my line, extending it to there. I'm not really drawing that all the way, but I'm just kind of making sure that's going to agree. So when you hear people talking about one-point perspective, that's what they mean. So I'm going to stop that fence there, but then we get another shorter one there. I'm going to pull that one back right to that same point, vanishing point right there, make it a little shorter. And then we're going to have a fence over here, and I'm going to make a line that is going to kind of be the imaginary top of my fence. I'm going to start the fence probably up here, bring that line back to the vanishing point very lightly because I am going to have to erase that. And then I'm going to start drawing some fence posts. The fence posts, of course, are going to go vertically rather. And as they carry on down the road, they're going to get a little skinnier and a little shorter. So I'm making the height of the fence post to fall on that line. And they can get a little closer together as they get further away because they are going, that your space gets compressed as you go further away. And if you have any questions that occur to you while we're sketching, go ahead and put them in the chat. Just type the word question in all caps, and then type your question normally. So that way, hopefully the spam filters on YouTube won't like kick you out or anything.
People are saying they're getting a little bit of fuzziness on the picture. So I don't know if it's because you're sketching and it's not sure where to focus.
It might be because I have my camera up quite a bit higher than it was last time. So I have this at 720p. You should be getting this at 720p resolution. But since it is a little higher, I had to zoom in. So maybe that's it. We'll see how it goes as we progress. Hopefully we'll be all right.
Well, it could be too because it's a lot of white and
nothing really for it to focus in on. I'm just trying to think if I have something. Let me put this ruler down. Let's see. Hopefully that looks pretty crisp, I think.
Well, I'm waiting for it to catch up on my side. It's not fuzzy. There we go.
Can you see that there?
Yeah. See, I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, it's hard to say. I don't know. I think it could be just because I'm wondering if I could put my canvas up on a book or something. Let's start going. If it seems to be a problem,
let's get some color on it. Sometimes it's sketching. We'll see. I'm
gonna put this really tall tree in here. It's about, I would say, about a third of the way across. And with the rule of thirds, that's going to look good if we have something coming up the third of the way across our paper. I'm just kind of sketching this in just so we have that kind of guidepost as we go along and paint. We'll have another shorter one over here, further down the road. Don't want to put too much in case I decide not to use it. Debating. I think I will put this telephone pole in over here because I think it just kind of helps with the perspective and the scale. I'll throw that in right there. And then we can we'll use our vanishing point again. We can have some phone lines coming in. So I'm putting my finger on that point so I know that I'm kind of aiming everything to that point. Let's get another phone pole over here. Should be about that high, because if I follow that line down, I know that should be about that high. And then we'll just let that kind of fade off to nothing. All right, so we've got some nice perspective here. I'm going to bring it up. Maybe that will help you see it a little bit right now, so you can just kind of get your bearings. And we're going to start off with our colors. We're going to use Gamboge. And I think I might use a different brush today to put my background in. This came in the Mimic squirrel, which is a faux squirrel set from jerry's.orama.com. And I have been, this one came in the intro kit, and I thought, I hardly ever use that one. Let's use that one today. So I'm getting the gamboge out of my palette. And I am going to get the Pyrrole red, which is a nice neutral red. If you don't have this, do Cad Red Deep or Naphthol Crimson. It's basically a very neutral red. Maybe if it's going to tip towards a color, it's going to tip more towards orange than pink. And we're going to use phthalo blue. If you don't have phthalo, you can use any intense green-based blue, such as a Prussian blue. If you have like peacock blue, or if you have a turquoise that's a really deep turquoise, not a pale turquoise like that. It's not going to give you the intensity of color we're going to need. All right, so we're going to start off, and you're going to need to make sure you have a paper towel handy. We'll start off with our lightest area, which is going to be over here. I am going to wet my background, so you want to wet everything that is in the sky. I would not wet over the house, so just kind of go over the tree and the sky. But I would go around the little peak that you drew into that little house or barn.
The picture is freezing up.
Oh, no.
Okay, it's catching up. There we go. Froze on my end.
Well, you know, I was having some trouble yesterday. I was watching something on Netflix, and it kept freezing on me. So, gosh, I hope there's no issues.
Yeah, I will, because I think it's still in the process of switching over from Time Warner to whatever.
What?
It's not gonna be. It's like Time Warner, but somebody's buying them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So.
Oh man.
Spectrum is what it's switching over to. So
I
I've noticed
that.
a couple times, like there's been some.
Oh, that's a bummer, because I get like the premium packet, the premium.
I don't think it's gonna change anything. It's just like a name change.
I know, but if the quality is changing.
Well, I think it might be because they're busy swapping stuff over.
Maybe.
So even when you put the color on, it's still looking pretty blurry on this end. So you might need, I think it's the camera's too far away.
Okay, so would you mind grabbing some thick books from the bookshelf over there?
I'm going to charge you extra for that.
All right, I'll double your pay.
0 double to 0.
Heck, I'll give you 10 times your pay. I'm blotting out the sun, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Pyrrole Scarlet.
Here you go. See how that works.
This is on the fly, technical.
That's right. New setup.
All right. Sweet. I think I like it a little bit better. Maybe have to go a little higher, but
we'll wait and see.
We'll see how this looks. Yeah, you can monitor from the. All right, a little more of that red over here. It's going to fade. It's going to be a little bit lighter when it blends in and dries, so keep that in mind.
Oh, God. I'm tripping over my own feet.
Yeah, we got cords and everything. I wonder if I'm a little further away from the router, too, because downstairs in the basement, I'd kind of be under it.
Oh, it could be a combo.
Who knows? Okay. These colors, this red isn't going to stain too badly, I don't think. The yellow is not staining, but when we get into the blue, it is a staining color, so you have to really watch how much color you put down. And I'm going to clean my brush and start the blue up in this corner. And I just want to make sure I don't go into that roof. We will have some of those colors on the snow there, but I don't want to get it there too early and not be able to lift it if I need to, because it is a staining color. And generally your more transparent, brighter colors tend to stain. Now I'm just cleaning my brush. I'm going to go in with clear water here. Basically, I want to take out some of the color because the sky is quite light in the center. Oh, I'm using a different paper today. Oh, no. Yes, I am. I'm using Saunders Waterford, which is something that people use a lot in the UK. I was looking for some rough paper, and I happen to have a big pile of that. So so that's what I'm using. It does remind me quite a bit of an Arches or Fabriano Artistico. All right. So that is all set for our sky for the moment. And I want to get there's some kind of like fuzzy trees and mountains in the background, and the trees look almost turquoise. They are so bright. I'm going to switch. I think I'm going to go to this round, which is actually holding up quite well. I re-glued it last week, and so far so good. And since my sky is damp, I should get some nice blending. I still don't think I want to use a blue on its own just because it is so intense. I'm going to pick it up in some of that red. How's everything going in chat? How's it look on your end? Is it better?
It looks better. I think.
Should it still be up higher, do you think?
You might have to. I think we're gonna have to drop the.
Can I get a couple more books, maybe?
Drop the camera next.
Yeah, we can do that.
Joey, did you find all the crumbs? What happens when we all wake up from our turkey comas?
Oh, and Sister Wendy's is that's one of the best art history books ever. If you're ever looking for an art history book, Sister Wendy. She has a PBS. She used to do PBS.
Really?
Oh, she's fantastic. Pretty much everything I learned about art history is from Sister Wendy. They used to make me teach art history at the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I didn't go to college. You realize I didn't go to college for art anyway. Oh boy. What were you saying about a turkey coma?
I said, this is what happens when we all wake up from our turkey coma. Hilarity and off-the-cuff enjoyment ensues. Yeah, that looks a lot better if you look from...
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yep. Okay, so we were just too far away. It's funny because I did focus it and white balance and everything before I started. But live and learn. And I'm not continuing this all the way across because I want to have some broken areas where I'll be able to put some fuzzy trees. So we're mixing from these three colors. We've done that before, so you kind of know what you're in for. We're going to make our brown. We're going to do. I find it easier to do a brown if you start by making orange. So if I take my yellow and I add the red to it, I'm going to get a nice orange. And then if I add blue to that. Well, that's a little too green, so I need more red because red's is the opposite. You can keep working until you've balanced out your colors. There, we get a nice chocolatey brown color there. And that's going to be a good color to throw in just some nondescript shrubs and trees in the background. And it'll just give us a little bit of layers. The brown's a little warmer, so it'll push back that blue layer a little bit. I can even do a little bit in the sky, make like a taller tree in the distance, and it'll fuzz out and look fairly natural. Because all the trees look just kind of like lacy and brown this time of year. And when it snows, all the leaves are down. Okay, while that's drying, I don't think there's anything else I need to do fuzzy in the background at this point. I want to work on getting some snow colors, and let's start off with my blue, really watery. And I actually think I want a juicier brush. I'm going to go with my number 30 round. Use whatever big round you have. You don't have to go this big, but you want something that's going to hold quite a bit of water. And I'm going to keep this dry, and I'm going to do this snowbank here. And basically I'm painting the shadow of the snowbank on the edge of the road. So I'm just going into that very watery phthalo blue and bringing it back towards that vanishing point that we talked about earlier.
Deborah Sullivan, I always go too far. How do you know when the painting is finished?
The best advice I can give is to step away and then come back to it later, because often when you come back later, they say hindsight's 20/20. When you come back later, you can really see how your painting looks. Just tapping over here. This is just going to be like a little snowbank that's kind of like up next to that building, little entrance into the building there, into the little, between those two little fences. A little bit of blue over here, and I can go over the fence posts because they're going to be silhouetted, so I'm just going to get a little bit of blue shadow in there. And this roof also needs a little blue on it. So we can go right in and throw that in there. I got a froggy throat. And to bring this away from the sky, we're actually going to be putting some trees behind this building. So don't worry about it kind of blending in with the sky at this point. It's not really going to make a big difference. Another little building next to it. I think I'll just leave that so I can put that little building next to it as well. So I'm just leaving up that little area. I'm just going to get some kind of tire tracks going in there towards a vanishing point. Even though we can't really see our point, it's still like right about there. So all of our lines are going to converge right in there whenever we have something linear that we're painting. Now I want to get some of that pinkish color, which is just watery pyrrole red. Lots of water on that. And that's going to appear in some of the snow as well. Kind of like water, it's going to reflect your sky colors.
Gracie Shack, what's your advice for newbie art teachers?
Well, your biggest job is to inspire your students. So I would say be encouraging and try to bring the best out of your students. It's not about showing off what you can do. It's about inspiring them and pulling and helping them reach their potential.
Rugal Vesayeti, how would you refill Winsor and Newton watercolor markers?
I have not attempted to refill mine yet because they haven't gone dry, but I think I would probably excuse me, take like gum arabic and water the watercolor way down with probably some distilled water and gum arabic, and then try to soak it up, or maybe to pull one of the ends off and use an eyedropper to put it in. I mean, they're disposable markers. So they don't really have anything to lose if it doesn't work out very well.
And how much of a pain in the rear it is. Sometimes, sometimes it's not worth
the aggravation.
You're better off spending a few extra dollars than the aggravation.
But there's no harm trying it if it's
exactly
if you're going to throw it away anyway. So
you never know.
The thing is, you just want to make sure you're getting some good pigments in there so you can take advantage of the fact those markers are light fast. So so you want to if you're going to bother refilling them, you want to make sure you're filling them with something that's not going to fade. This mixture of the pyrrole red and phthalo blue is giving me a nice cool gray, like a purpley gray. And I'm using that in the road just to get the ruts and tire tracks and shadows. You know, tap it on for texture too. Get some dirt in the road, some of that brown you mixed. You'd usually get some dirt where they've sanded the roads.
Or in Maine, it's possibly just a dirt road.
That's true. Excuse me. Goodness, I've froggy today.
It's the weather. It was all rainy and cold and crappy for the last 5 days, and then got up today. It was like 50 and sunny for a while.
Who's in the house with us today?
Well, we got Valerie, Jen K, Dominique, Gracie Shack, but she's got to go. She's babysitting. She's got to order some food. Let's see. Go up. Ian is here.
Awesome.
Did I say Joe Maskey's here? Grace Blosser.
Oh, I got a present for Rich Bowden. Do you want to see it?
Yes. Eve's Bolt.
A splatter brush.
Ooh, he's going to like that.
Yeah, it's fancy.
And it's red.
It's red. It's fancy. It's from the Dollar Tree.
Betty Crocker.
I think it'll splatter a lot of
You
things.
can really, and you know, because it is the silicone.
Yeah.
Totally washable. You'll be able to use it for years to come.
Yep. Think of all the splattering. All right, let's see. Boy, this paper is pretty wet. I think I'm going to plug in my my heat tool and dry that a little bit.
Jen K wants to know if you're going to be using that today.
I don't think I need it today. I don't think it will enhance this, believe it or not. But I'm going to find something to splatter.
You know, we could just do splatter paintings one week.
We should do that. That would be fun. Put down some taps. I really should have plugged it. Oh, good. I think I'm plugging right here. Put down some taps. Draw with our Shappies.
No, I'm telling you.
Splattering.
This is splattering in Maine. Olivia W. I am thinking about buying the Mimic Swirl brushes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really a beginner, but I'm currently liking the Royal Langnickel Green Handle synthetic brushes. Would Mimics be a good transition?
Let's see. The green-handled ones, if I recall right, are for oil or watercolor, and they're natural hair, so they're very thirsty. The bristles were a little shorter on those. I have a set of the green-handled ones, but I use them for oils. I got them decades ago. If it's the same one, I think that you would enjoy... I don't think you'd have any problem switching over. I think you would enjoy the performance of the Mimics better because they're a sharper brush. They come to a better point and they hold more liquid. So I don't think you'd have any problem. I think you'd really enjoy switching over.
Foliage One Arts. Lindsay, did you see Rich's own splatter tool? I saw in his video and bought one.
Did it have like a cork on the end and you twist it? I think... There's also a Tim Holtz new spatter one that's got like really long, like plasticky bristles.
Nona Lawton, how many different brushes would I need to get to start me off with watercoloring?
Not many. I would get like a number 8 round or a number 10 round and a that comes to a really nice point, and I would get like a 1-inch flat.
And Joe Maskey would love a Jackson Pollock day.
Awesome.
I'd even get on that. I can splatter with that.
Yeah, sure.
I have old toothbrushes at home I could bring in.
Nice.
I use those for splattering.
Me too.
Not that I do a lot of splattering, but when I do, I've been known to use a toothbrush.
Oh, there's another tip. If you ever have a hard time getting your tape off your paper, you can heat it up. So I'm pressing my tape back down because the heat made it lift. So if you do ever get a situation, or you're trying to remove price tags from something you bought, Christmas shopping or whatever, then use your heat gun. It will take the tags right off. Okay, so now I want...
Just a side note, you can also do that on vehicles. Like if you buy a vehicle from somewhere and you want to take the dealer sticker off, you can. I use my heat gun to take it off and like a rubber scraper.
Oh, good idea.
Just a note.
Good
totally
idea.
Not art worthy, but art
it's all related.
But
art is related with everything.
I wanted to take my sticker off the back of my Jeep where I bought it, so I took my little heat gun that I use for embossing and came right off.
No free advertising for them.
That's right. Katrina Knoll, what colored pencils are your favorite?
I am in a minority here. I really like the Derwent Color Soft, but it's because I like to sketch fast, and I like to lay down a lot of color, and I like soft opaque leads. Because I like to work on colored paper, so it would depend on what you wanted to work on too. Like I know I have the polychromos and I like them, but they're more transparent, so they don't work as well, and they're oil based. They don't work as well on colored paper, I don't find. But they're most colored pencil artists that just do colored pencil prefer those, or they prefer the Caran d'Ache. Personally though, I like the Color Soft, and I've seen them very reasonably priced. I think the set of 72 is like $68 at Jerry's right now, and I paid more for my set of 72 when I bought them, so they're on a really good special. That's me. Some people like a harder pencil, like the Soho pencils are really hard, and so are like the Tombow Orogeton pencils. I don't like my pencils to be quite as hard. It's personal preference, but personally, I like Derwent Color Soft. I am going to go in and start painting these fence posts because that's the darkest part of my picture, and I want to get that kind of out of the way so I can establish my values. And even though there's not a lot of snow on my fence posts, I think I am going to leave little sparkles to show like snow on like the edges of like the posts or the cross beams or whatnot, just because I think it is kind of pretty.
Foliage, one art. Lindsay was round wood segment with bottle brush and nail to spatter with.
Oh yeah, I have something like that. I haven't used it yet, but it was by Royal Nickel or Lowell Cornell, one or the other. Haven't used it yet though. But isn't that cute? He got a spatter brush.
For all of his complaining, negativity about spattering. Serena Silvercrest, do you remember the very first time you painted an animal in watercolor?
In watercolor.
You don't really do animals, do you?
I don't do animals too much. I did a deer last week.
Maybe that's why she was asking.
I remember painting my dog when I was about 7. That's probably my earliest.
Gold 004, what is the most economical way to try out the fancy watercolor papers such as Arches and Fabriano?
I would say see if you can find see if you can find a not bulk pack, a sampler pack. I know Strathmore has released them before. I would just Google Arches sampler pack and see if you can get one. That way you could get probably like a quarter sheet of the different kind of flavors, if you will, and then you can decide what kind you like the best. It depends for me, like what I'm painting. Sometimes I want a rough paper, like today I like a rough paper with landscapes. Sometimes I want a smoother paper because I want to be able to get more detail. It just depends on what I'm painting. That's a great way to go about it. Or get small blocks or small pads, like a 6x9. That's probably one of the smaller sizes. Sometimes you can get postcards, but it's nice to have a bigger piece because you can always cut down a larger piece and you have more room to work rather than feeling like you have to be kind of conserving and stingy with a tiny piece.
Daliala, are there any real hair brushes you would recommend to someone who has only used synthetic?
I'm really not recommending the natural hair brushes because for watercolor, the sables, it's not a very kind industry. I would say if you have them, by all means use them, but nowadays the faux sables are so good that it makes no sense to, in my opinion, makes no sense to harm an animal or go through that expense when there are so many good synthetics like these mimic brushes or Princeton Neptunes or even Royal and Langnickel Zen brushes that are found at a lot of the big box stores. I mean, they do such a nice job, and you don't have that on the animals on your conscience and in the pocketbook. I mean, it's such a small fraction of a price. Like this brush in a sable would probably be $75 and get it for a few dollars. So there's none of them really I would really recommend just because I think that you can get as good quality. You do what you want to do. I'm not judging you, but I just
your personal preference.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I mean, and just on us, when you can get that quality too and not have to spend, I mean, like this brush here, this would be a couple $100 if it was a Kolinsky sable. And yeah, and I just dropped it on the floor, so obviously I can't have nice things.
And now you have dog hair on it because it did hit Chewy, so it's kind of like a natural hair brush now.
Yeah, it's a natural dog.
Just
hair.
buy a dog, roll your brushes in the dog. It'll pick up some hair, and then it's a natural hair bristle brush.
There you go. Cruelty free. The dog slobber on it a little bit too.
And if the dog needs to be brushed, it's a great way to do it. Judith A. Rowland, I have several artist quality sets, but bought a Koi student set, and I'm finding that precious is my problem. Are they light fast?
That I don't know. Because I don't know the pigments. If I knew the pigments in them, it'd be easy to kind of guess how light fast they would be. I, by the way, just added a little red and yellow to this same mix to warm it up and make it a little more brown. Because you know, I have to say though, I have used my koi set a lot for like just doing small sketches, and I put my like greeting cards. This is another reason I sell my greeting cards for $7, because I might be using my, you know, student grade paints, and I might not, if they're the Primas or the kois. I don't know honestly how light fast they are. I mean, Prima did come out with a chart, but since it doesn't have pigment numbers, I'm very skeptical about believing it. So that's one of the reasons I don't charge very much for my little postcards or watercolor cards. But to tell you the truth, I haven't noticed any fading with them in the shop, and it's a very well sunlit area. So, you know, I probably wouldn't, if you make something that you really love, I just wouldn't, you know, tape it to your fridge in direct sunlight. I would, you know, put it in a mat behind glass. So I don't know how light fast it is, but I wouldn't worry about it tons. If you're doing like maybe something with purple or the bright, almost neon looking colors, they're going to be the ones that'll tend to fade. But if you're using earthy tones, they're usually fairly stable no matter who you're getting them from.
Olivia W., you said the green handle royal and Langnickel brushes are natural hair. I thought they were synthetic Taklon.
Well, maybe we're thinking about different ones. There was some with an acrylic handle that came out a few years ago in a value set that had natural hair in them. But maybe there's another set. That's just the one I was thinking of. There could have been another set. If they're a Taklon, then the mimics are going to be softer and more absorbent. But you know, I think if you're intermediate painter, you'll have no problem. Before I go in and paint around this, I want to soften this. So I think I'm going to need a stiffer brush. Let me see. Let's see if I can reach over here and get a stiffer brush. I want to soften the edges of that, because I won't be able to do it once I start painting branches in front of it. Hopefully I can soften it up a little bit. I don't think my brush is very clean though. That's not a good idea. Oh, maybe that gamboge doesn't lift as well as I thought it did. That's all right. I just want to soften it up a little bit. There's nothing that says, like, if you do upgrade to the Mimic brush from a Royal and Langnickel Taklon brush, there's no reason you can't swap back and forth in both in one painting. It's not like you upgrade and you get rid of everything else you have. Use it with it, especially until you learn to control the extra water that it's going to hold.
Okay. Judith A. Rowland, have you any information on the Senlier La Petite?
Actually,
I'm getting some next week, and they seem like fun.
I just ordered those on Jerry's, actually, because I had this embarrassingly big cart at Jerry's. And I said, okay, Lindsay, this is crazy. It was sitting in my car like all of Black Friday weekend. I'm like, this is insane. You need to remove some things. So what do you really want? And the things that made the cut was one of the sets of the Selenier La Petite Aquarelle watercolors, the set of 24. I did keep that. So I will be reviewing that. And I'll do a little demo with it. And the other thing that I kept was these pearlescent Mungio water-soluble oil pastels that looked so much fun. They kind of looked like the Prima oil pastels, but they're pearlescent. So, yeah, I'll have tutorials on both of those. Oh my gosh, I had so much in that cart. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Baru Siva, Lindsay, have you done an underwater scene in watercolor? Is it difficult to achieve? I
have done, I did a betta fish, and I'm trying to think if I've done anything else. That's just like a dull orange. So again, the three colors, mostly red and yellow, a little bit of blue, make that dull color. I'm going to make a little bit darker. Three colors again, just a little bit more intense, making a nice darker brown to drop in there. I'm a little out of my element because I have a credit card scraper. I haven't filmed up here since last spring or before the weather warmed up. Scraping in some branches in there. And it's dry over here, so I want to go in and add some big trees back here too.
Lady Date. Hello, Lindsay. We know your thoughts on Reeves watercolors. Would you ever consider doing a tutorial with them?
If I still have some, I would. I mean, they're not a bad paint. They're just, you know, they're student grade paint. I used it a lot when I was teaching kids. I'll switch to this brush. You can use a liner. I'm just using this dagger because it'll give me kind of a random branches and shapes, so I won't fuss around too much. I can twist my brush and get like double lines and just get something that looks a little bit more natural. Chicken scratchy kind of. See how I can kind of just let the brush dry and it will spread apart a little bit.
Serena Silvercrest. Lindsay, have you ever been in a watercolor competition? If so, how was it?
Never have. I don't,
She's YouTube royalty. She doesn't do watercolor competitions.
Well, it's just, it's so subjective,
Yeah.
and I don't want to feel like, I don't want to put my worth in somebody else's hands, I guess. It's hard enough selling your work and putting a price on your work and, you know, feeling rejected if someone doesn't deem it worthy. But it's a, you know, it's a whole other level of rejection to, you know, people judge your work that,
Someone's just in a bad mood that day, and or their ex-spouse, person, whoever painted landscapes, and you paint a landscape.
yeah,
It could be all over.
yeah, who knows?
Deborah Sullivan, I've heard bad things about New Gamboge, that it will end up turning brown. Would you disagree?
I would disagree. That's more old Gamboge.
Old Gamboge.
New Gamboge has been reformulated to not do those nasty things. You can always see the permanency too on your tubes of paint, or you can look up the pigment and research it that way, because there could be different formulas between manufacturers to get that warm yellow color. But old Gamboge was quite fugitive. And I mean, they've changed formulas for new Gamboge just because some pigments have become scarce and unavailable. So they've had to go with a different formulation from some companies. I have a single pigment color. There's old Gamboge, there's old new Gamboge, and then there's new Gamboge.
There's 3 levels of
Yeah.
Gamboge.
Yeah, it's a real old one you want to stay away from. The only problem I have with a color that's recently, and it's not even that recent of a color, it's a fairly older tube that I had, Winsor Newton Cerulean. I did find that went a little brown after a while, but that is that's something that has been known about that color. I don't know how I happened to have it. It was like a tube from the 70s, so I don't even know how I happened to have it in my stash. I was thinking I bought it, but I can't imagine that stock would have stayed around in somebody's store. It must have been given to me or something.
Brenda Collins Deeks, I have some paper that's as still, I think she might have meant stiff. Stiff as cardboard and really rough on both sides. Someone gave it to me. I think it's watercolor paper. What do you think I should use it for?
It's probably 300-pound rough arches, or could be Fabriano, could be Winsor and Newton. They had a beautiful artist paper. I don't know if their paper is still the quality used to be, but they used to 100% cotton 300-pound paper that was really lovely. Yeah, I would maybe cut off a little piece of it and play with it and see what you think. And if it's performing well as watercolor paper, I would use it as a watercolor paper. I am going to get this dark side of the fence right here while I'm at it. I think I'll just use this flat brush. Somebody recently asked me about the Princeton brushes because they have a lot of different brushes. They have the Neptunes, which are really soft. They're like the Mimics. They hold a lot of paint. They're a little bit less springy than the Mimics, but they're a beautiful brush. And somebody was asking me about their Snap and Value brushes, and I have to say that I have never found a Princeton brush that was bad. And the Snap and their Value packs are very well priced, so I would not hesitate to try them, especially if you're on a budget. And, you know, because I'll have like a pack for $5. It's got like a, you know, a 1-inch flat and a number 8 round and a, you know, smaller one. You just, you know, you really can't beat it. And I've never seen a problem with it, with the quality of any of their brushes.
Jill Whitaker. Hi, Lindsay. Can I sell my painting after following your tutorial?
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I would just double check. Sometimes I use, like this photos from Graphic Stock where I'm a subscriber, beautiful reference photos. I think if you follow my tutorial, you should be fine since I am a subscriber. But I might check with my contact over there and just double check on that one. But if it's from like if I use the photo from Paint My Photo, absolutely, because they've given permission and I'm giving permission. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I would just maybe I'll just double check with the folks at Graphic Stock if my you know the fact that I've taught it and I'm a subscriber, if that's enough to protect you.
I would think so, because you're also not reproducing the photo exactly. Like you're not making copies of the picture and selling it as you're printing off, because you're printing off an image and you're doing a painting of it. But I don't know if that would make a difference.
Yeah, you could always subscribe to it yourself, and then you'd have the access to all of those photos. If you know, I don't know if that's in your budget or not, but it is a great service. Getting this little fence in here. I like using Graphic Stock photos because I can like pick up the photo and show it to you if I need to. And with Paint My Photo, I would have to go and ask every photographer individually, and sometimes I'm kind of like at the last minute, which isn't your fault, it's my fault, but you know, sometimes I'm kind of at the last minute deciding what I want to do or pulling together what I want to do, because the Fridays are kind of my treat. It's like if I've done all my work, then I can do a Friday live show, you know. So I'm kind of, a lot of times it's kind of planned a little bit last minute.
A wild carrot appeared. I recently got a size 8 round Princeton Neptune brush. I love it and I want to get another one. What brush should I get in terms of size, shape, etc.?
Well, there's a couple brushes I really like. Oh, I have them right here. I like their oval wash. Let me wet it so you can kind of see. Because it does come to a fairly good point. That's their oval wash. I just don't want to drip it on my my paper. That is a 3/4 inch. That might be a little big for just, I would probably go with a 1/2 inch for a more versatile brush. And I also like their dagger stripers. This is a 1/4 inch. You can do 1/4 inch or 3/8. Very useful size, but I like it for doing random trees. I'll do another one over here just to kind of show you. I like it because I can't fuss and over control it. I'm going to just kind of be at its mercy a little bit while I'm using it, and I like that because it just helps me get a really natural look. So if I go over here, I'm going to put we'll put this little tree here, kind of coming out of the snow. There's the base of it. So I can kind of press, and I can get a nice thick branch, but I can lift up, and I can get little scraggly ones. There's an artist, Liz Steele. I think she's Australian. Either Australian or British. Her accent sounds very Australian to me. But anyway, Liz Steele, you can go to her website or follow her on Instagram. She uses daggers a lot, and she will do like these cute little teacup paintings. She's an urban sketcher. And I mean, she gets so much versatility out of that brush. I would highly recommend checking her out before you decide, because I think it's a very useful brush. I don't use it to its full potential like she does. She'll like just go out painting and just take that brush. So that it's just, if you don't have a brush like that, if you don't need a super like, it's not the most useful brush in the world, but if you don't have one and you have a lot of other brushes, it's definitely great to add to your collection. Some skinnier trees back there.
Dion C. Does Lindsay have photos on Paint My Photos?
I don't have photographs. I'm not a very good photographer, so I don't have any photos. Sometimes I'll share photos on my blog. I feel like for a photo to be on Paint My Photo, it needs to be really good, and my photos are not. They're not good enough, I don't think, to upload to Paint My Photo personally. But some of the photographers that are there are just unreal talented. So if I have a photo to share, I'll put it on my blog, but I don't know. I don't want to waste their space on Paint My Photo with my crappy photos. I have a few artwork photos, but I had a hard time uploading since they moved to the new system, so I unfortunately haven't uploaded much of my finished paintings. Darken this sky up a little bit. It's kind of fading. Mixing up some more of this dark again. We're going to start, I like to start with the strong colors, the red and the blue, get those balanced, then add some yellow. And if your paints are good and dry in your well, you don't really have to rinse your brush off in between. It's a good habit for kids to get into so they don't, you know, completely contaminate everything. But I find that as long as they're hard and dried in their wells, then I can just wipe off that level of ick when I'm all done. Since we have kind of a sunset going on, the sun is low, we're going to have a lot of silhouetting. And I think a silhouette is a great type of painting for beginners because it's very forgiving. Any questions popping up as we go?
Oh, no, actually, some of us are talking about dogs right now. I was saying that this is one of the few places Chewy's allowed on the furniture. She's not allowed on the furniture house.
Is she on the couch now?
She was in one of the chairs, and now she's moved to the floor.
Aww, she was in one of those chairs over there?
Yeah.
Oh, Hazel used to do that. She used to hop up in those chairs.
Yeah.
So cats would steal her bed, and so she would hop up in one of those chairs.
Catherine Biddle Dutton, she's asking about who you just recommended. What was the name again?
Liz, L-I-Z, Steele, S-T-E-E-L-E. I think her website's just lizsteele.com. She has some books and some online classes, and she's an urban sketcher.
Olivia W., I bought a couple of Turner paints and put them in a new palette a couple of weeks ago, and as they dried, only the ultramarine cracked. It's not hard like a student grade would be, but I'm confused.
I would just spritz it and use it. I don't think it's good. It's not going to hurt anything. Sometimes, like, your paints, the big thing with their cracking, if they're falling out, because then you could end up wasting them. So the shards will get all mixed up. You can add a little smidgen of honey or glycerin to it. I use mine once a week, this palette once a week, at least once a week, so I haven't had any problems with them cracking. But it shouldn't hurt anything. You could just have it drier air than we do. Did she need help fixing it, or?
That's all I think that's what she was looking for, was what it meant. And
yeah, it's fine. Yeah, different manufacturers will have different levels of like glycerin or honey in their paints. I mean, some, like, you have to be careful because they never seem to really dry. And you have to, like, I find, and probably because we have a more humid environment here usually, I find in my M grams, once I pour it, I have to leave them like uncovered for quite a while to let them dry out enough that I can transport them. And I usually don't use them in my portable palettes for that reason. And then other paints will dry right up really easy. Like, I found the Daniel Smith to dry up really easily. Their own unique characteristics. You could use a liner or that striper for this, but I just feel a little more like I have a little more control with my number 8 round. It's up to you, whatever you like to use for a nice fine line. And I'm using my brush straight up and down, so it probably looks like I'm going to poke you in the eyeball with the end of my paintbrush, but I do that so that I can just get a razor sharp line there.
Paul Adams, what does the series number mean on watercolor tubes?
How much it costs and how expensive the pigments are. So a series 1 color might be $3 or $5 a tube. A series 2 would be $7. Well, not, I mean, this is generalization. And like a series 5 could be like $20 or $30 a tube. It just depends on how rare the materials are. And we're getting some nice perspective with those power lines there. Okay. I want to add another layer of kind of like some background shrubs down there. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more red and yellow kind of on the edge of my brown mix there, just so I can have a warmer, brighter mix. I'm just going to keep pulling brown in until I like the shade that I have. I'm going for kind of like a warm rust color. Don't want it too intense, so I'm adding a little more water to it. And I'm just going to kind of go in and tap in some brush, kind of like shrub. And I think I want to get a little bit of that color into these trees over here. They're just kind of, I don't know if they're glowing because of the sun or they're glowing because they still have some oak leaves hanging on like oak leaves want to do. That's why it's really important if you ever get the opportunity to go out and paint in life, because then you can actually get close to something and see, is that a leaf? Is that just reflection? When you're going off somebody's photograph, and especially I noticed, I think some of the photos are sweetened a little bit on graphic stock because they're meant to be beautiful photos, you know, for you to just use them as is on your websites and whatnot. So some I think have some kind of prettiness added to them that might not be there in real life. So when you do paint from real life, you can kind of get up close to something and see what you're really seeing, you know, and you can decide whether you want to make it prettier or just leave it as is. Like this could have been a flare or a filter or something, you know, added to it. You do a lot of photography, don't you, Sarah?
Well, I haven't really touched in a while, but yeah, you can definitely add some effects. They probably may have saturated the colors a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
just to bring out some of the yellows and oranges in the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
Or they may actually have to have had to dial them down because their sun is pointing at the lens.
Yeah, that's true.
But it depends on what their white balance was set at, too, when they took the picture. Ian Jackson has a comment. Did you know that Derwent have redone their drawing graphite pencils?
No, I didn't know that.
Redone them? How?
Yeah, but Derwent started following me on Twitter, so I was pretty excited.
Oh, that is exciting. Serena Silvercrest. Lindsay, what was the biggest watercolor painting you have ever done?
22 by 30. I used to work in that size quite a bit before I had kids. But I found that since I had kids, I work smaller so I could finish things. And, you know, so I don't lose train of thought. And if I get interrupted, it's easier to kind of jump back into a smaller painting.
Amy Livingston. I saw some Gonzai Tambi sets on sale. What do you think of the paint quality? As a beginner, how many colors do I need? 12, 24, or 36?
I have the 24 set, and it's very it's very nice. I like to use it a lot for mixed media because it's a little more opaque and I can layer. Like, it's almost got like this shellac to it. It's different from your traditional Western watercolor. And I think as long as you go into it knowing that, then you're not going to be comparing it and thinking, well, this isn't acting the way it should be. I like it a lot for stenciling. I have the 24 set, and that's lots of colors. Not that I would be opposed to the 36 set, but I think the 36 set has like metallics, so it depends on whether you want that or not. But they're nice. They're unique. They have their own kind of feel to it. I am going in with the blue, a little bit of red in it to cool it down, and I'm going to put a shadow from this tree across the road. So we've got this coming down, kind of coming down over the snowbanks there. A little dark. Might add a little more water to that. And down here, and it's going to go up the snowbank. I actually was thinking this was like a little. And this is the thing about painting real life compared to looking at a photo. I was thinking there was like a little break in the snowbank, but actually I think it's a shadow from that tree. Your light's over here, so it's going to cast this nice long shadow. And I think anything that you have close enough to the road is going to also put a little bit of a shadow.
Marion Pittman, would you give a basic explanation of warm versus cool colors? Sorry if this question is too basic, but Lindsay explains everything so clearly. I'd really like to hear it from her.
Oh, it's not too basic because there's two meanings. Warm, when you're thinking warm, when you first say warm and cool color without any context, would basically mean that red and yellow and orange are warm colors, and blue and green and sometimes purple are cool colors. But if you're thinking on terms of watercolor painting and a split primary palette, you have warm and cool versions of all colors. So if we take a look at my palette here, I think I have it pretty much arranged like that. So if I'm talking about a cool red, I'm talking about these reds here that would make a better purple if I was to mix it with the blue. When I'm talking warm reds, I'm talking like this one right here. See how it already looks almost orange? That's warmer. This yellow is much warmer. It's much closer to orange than this yellow, which is cooler and closer to green. So these yellows are a little cooler. Even within greens, sap green's a warmer green. Viridian or phthalo green is a cooler green. It's closer to a cooler color, like blue. So over here, these like an ultramarine blue is closer to purple, which is a warmer color because it's closer to red, so that's a warm blue. And like a phthalo blue or a turquoise, that's closer to green, and it's a cooler blue. Even though yellow is a warm color too, it's the blue is a little tricky, but you basically look at the undertones and see what it's closer to, what color neighbor does it relate to. So like alizarin crimson is a cool red, and cadmium red is a warm red. So crimson will make a better purple, and cadmium would make a better orange because of how it, like what its neighbor is on the color wheel. Does that make sense?
I thought it did.
Okay, cool. And basically mixing color, I'm just pulling some shadows off of these trees too. Mixing colors is what's going to help you learn that more than anything, more than any color theory explanation. Just sit down with your palette and have a good mix. And if you're afraid of wasting your precious paint, get some cheap student grade paints and practice with those.
Or even crayons. I mean,
yeah, you can scribble acrylic crayons and tell. Crayola watercolors Prang watercolors are actually better, and they're very inexpensive, and you could learn a lot with those.
Because they have, I mean, you know, if you don't want to waste your paint, you know, just some crayons, because you can swatch out crayons and, you know.
That's true. That's true.
Everything I learned about colors was from crayons. K Burns. Hi, Lindsay. Do you know if there are tubes of the Gonzai Tambi for filling existing wells?
No, but you can buy the individual pans. And I like the size of those pans because they're really big. I'm going to just refill mine with the tubes that I have, but those pans are like that big. So if you have a big brush, you can get it right in there. So I'm saving all my pans when they go empty. I've only almost emptied a few of them. I used them in my craftsy class last year. They were really good for mixed media, and they weren't so precious that I was afraid that if something happened and they didn't get back to me, that I would be heartbroken.
What palette are you using, and where did you get it?
This is Zoltan Szabo palette. You can find that at Jerry's Artorama, or you might even find it in a big box art store. And I have the Turner paints in there. And I did make an addition to my Turner palette. Somebody asked me about this. I did add a quinacridone rose to it because the Mayan red that comes in the 18 set, I'll swatch it out. It's just not very potent. Let me just put it on the back of something here. You know, it's just a very soft red, and I didn't like that red so much, so I did add a quinacridone rose to it just to make it a little more versatile.
And you have that linked in the video description?
I don't know if I have the palette linked in the video description, but just search. I think I have it in my teacher list on Jerry's, but if you just search Zoltan Szabo, you'll see it. I think it's under 20, I believe. I forgot to paint the peak of this building in here. And I want to get the ridge line there. And I remember I left room for this other little building. So I'm just going to sketch that in.
Judith A. Rowland, someone just said the Gonzai are for rice paper. Have you used it, and how does it work?
Yeah, you can use it on the rice, but you can actually use it on whatever you want because of the like the shellac or whatever it is in there that kind of makes it a little shiny. It is a little thicker and it doesn't soak into your paper as much as like a regular watercolor paper. So if you have watercolor paper that's not as good of quality, they will work a lot better on it than like a traditional Eastern watercolor. So if you're using it in an art journal or for mixed media or in a sketchbook, it almost behaves like a gouache, except it's got a sheen to it, and gouache is generally matte. And most Eastern watercolors, because they're meant for painting on rice paper, will have those same characteristics. But you can use it on regular watercolor paper. It's not a problem to use it on regular watercolor paper, except you might just get a shiny spot here and there. But unless you've applied it really thickly, that's probably not going to happen. I'm adding a little bit of the Pyrrole Red just into the edge of my little brown mix over here, so it's still pretty bold. And I'm going to put in a few brighter bushes. I think this is an early snowfall. We still have a little bit of red on the trees. We've had a few of those, like crazy early snowfalls before the...
Yeah. Well, we got... last week up north in Aroostook County, they said there are places that got almost 2 feet of snow.
Oh, wow.
It's like they can have it.
Yeah, really. We would have, though, with all that rain that we got, if that had been
snow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got new tires on the vehicle, so I'm good to go this winter. Have you put new vehicles on your tires on your vehicle?
And no, I haven't. And I've got a pesky little check maintenance. I got to talk to your husband about my. I think the light only came on because my oil change. Went to a new oil change guy, and I don't think they reset because I went early, so I don't think they reset my oil change thing. But it's making me a little nervous. I'm adding some of them. I'm trying to capture this bright, like glow, like reflection of the sun in the tree branches here. I don't know if it's working or not, though.
Stephanie Mueller, would the fence have a shadow?
You can't see it because it's, oh yeah, this would actually have a little bit of, well, you know what? I don't think it's tall enough. I think it's getting caught behind the snowbank because the snowbank is up a little bit. So I don't think, it isn't in the photo. It's only the tree in the photo. So I think the snowbank's up a little too high to catch that fence. And these fences over here, the shadow will be on the other side of it. If there wasn't a snowbank here, then yes. I think I need to probably enhance the snowbank a little bit then. I don't think I like what I'm doing with this orange.
Brenda Collins Deeks. Lindsay, I used your supply list from an earlier video to make up my own 10-pan palette, but I have one spot left. Should I fill it with yellow ochre, raw umber, or some other color?
Oh, if you don't have yellow ochre, I would go with yellow ochre. That's a color you're not going to regret, I don't think. All right, I'm going to almost mix a little bit of green. I'm going to take the phthalo.
Valerie agrees with you. Valerie Connell also said yellow ochre.
Yellow ochre. I was going to say, you sure agrees with that, or you agrees with me that I'm messing up the sky?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that part.
Oh, Julie, what are you doing? She's snorting over there. Yeah. Adding a little bit of the gamboge into my phthalo. Not too much. I don't want it really green, but I feel like I do need something. And the photo looks kind of green here, and I like the way it looks. So I am adding that into my snowbank area. And I think I want a little bit on this roof here. I'm not going right to the edge of that snow area because I want it to feel a little more round. And I think for this roof there, I'm going to do a little bit of the reddish, very, very, very washy. A little red in there. Just put a drop of color and then just spread it out with your damp brush. And I think to enhance my snowbank, I need to warm up some of the tops a little bit. And I'm going to do the yellow with a little bit of the red in it.
Maybe I need a little more red. I guess I just want to make sure I don't end up getting the whole thing too green. Let's see. That's really bright. That pyrrole red is really strong, so you do want to be careful of it. Don't want it to look like there was some sort of horror movie scene in your snowbank. Roadkill.
Put a little bit of a different spin on it.
Yeah. That's a Stephen King snowy road. It's the snowy road from Misery.
Yeah, it is. That's where the lady from Misery lives.
I'm your biggest fan.
I just reread that not too long ago.
Yeah.
Jackie Watson, how should I know how strong to paint the watercolors?
Well, different paintings are going to call for different strengths. Like when you're painting snow, you have to be really careful not to overdo it because you're painting something white and you're painting how the light reacts to that. So there's a lot of like adding water and blotting off and keeping it really light. But if you're painting something that's really bold, then you need to go in stronger with your color. So each painting is going to demand a different level of saturation and color. Just practice and experience.
Bonnie Hosfeld is asking if you could show the photo that you're painting from.
And I do have this on my blog, and it's linked in the video description. I just have it taped in front of me on the front of my computer. I'll try not to click any buttons when I retape it.
Serena Silvercrest is there. Lindsay, is there a watercolor you don't use because it's too precious?
Not really, because it goes so far that I wouldn't not use it. I mean, maybe if I had just if it was like a color I couldn't get anymore. I do have some colors that you just can't buy anymore. And those I just might conserve, but no, there isn't. I save some brands for certain applications because, they're more expensive. I'm not going to practice with them, but generally no. Watercolors last so long. They're not going to go bad, but they're also, it doesn't take much to do a painting. All right, I gotta look at this. A little bit of a distance here. All right, I need some more detail up in the trees, and I feel like those lines are all the same, so I need to go with a different brush. I'm going to go with my liner, which is a round brush with lots of long skinny bristles, and going back in with my dark. And I'm actually I think I'm going to make that a little purplier with more red and blue because I am seeing some cooler shadows. Just like I saw the warmer ones, I am seeing some cooler ones that are a little bit purplier. I'm also noticing these branches are dragging down. So I think that's maybe where I'm having trouble with this tree. I need to drag these branches down. I think that might be a willow tree.
I think you're right. I think it looks like a type of willow.
So I think I want to really get that shape in there because it's kind of unique and interesting.
I think willow trees are one of my favorites.
I love them too. I don't have any though.
I don't either, but we're going to be chopping down a bunch of pine trees within the next year or so. So once those disgusting, sappy, they're the sappy, drippy ones that shed needles all over the place and ruin your yard. Pine trees, they're getting cut down. And we're going to burn them in the fire.
Oh, bonfire.
Yes. My hope is to put a willow tree in one of the spots.
No, I've heard they're kind of messy though.
I think you can get ones that are less messy. And it's not that they're messy, but pine needles are so acidic that once they fall, when they get into the grass, it just kind of ruins the dirt for anything. You can't really plant anything.
Grow, what are those flowers that change color? Hydrangeas?
Yeah, you could do hydrangeas or blueberry bushes, but they're also out back. So I live in Maine. I'm surrounded by pine trees.
Well, it is the pine tree state, It is the pine tree state. It's our state.
I don't need them shedding needles in my yard.
Yeah, we got a big pine tree in our front yard too.
Olivia W., do you stand when you paint? I never have, just hunched at my desk or use a makeshift easel, but I see many watercolors standing and painting. Is there a benefit?
I do sometimes. The benefit that I notice is that I could see my whole picture a lot better. Right now I'm sitting because of the I'm up in my office, but a lot of times I do stand, or I'll sit really high and have the desk quite low so that I can look down. But I mean, not really. I mean, you could always even tip your board up at a little bit of an angle if you needed to, like that or something. I think it's just a lot of people do it just so they can see their whole board. That's probably a little healthier too. I mean, I've heard that sitting is the new smoking.
It is the new smoking.
So, you know, there's that.
Well, that's all right. And next couple of years, something else will be the new sitting.
Yeah.
So, lie by, several of my brushes don't go to a point anymore. When are brushes worn out?
Well, sometimes I noticed that with like synthetics, like a number 6 round or something like that, especially in the synthetic, will go a little blunt. At that point, you probably want to get something with a better point, but I wouldn't throw away the other brush because you can always use that for texture or scrubbing, or you would even use it with acrylics or something if you're, you want to, or, use it with oils or something that doesn't require such a precise shape. Use it for some like task that you don't really need a bright pointy brush, or give it to the kids or something. But yeah, if it was a pointy brush and starting to kind of just be round at the end instead of sharp, then get another one to replace the pointy one. But I still would keep that for as long as it's not like shedding or anything, which it shouldn't be if it's been lasting me that long. I'm just doing little scribbles in here. I feel like I need this kind of laciness that I'm not getting. It just feels a little too sparse. And I'm going to mix up a brighter brown, red, yellow, just a smidgen of blue, or a smidgen of my already brown that I have made. To tone it down, and we're going to throw in a few little branches, grasses kind of poking through here around the fence. And then I think that's going to be done. Put little tufts on the top of some of these because they look kind of like little wheats or something. And put a couple. I think I want something over here. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to one of these brushes because the Mimic Kolinsky's have more of a rounded point than a sharp point. So I think I'll use those for some texture. I feel like I just need something in the
Joy, hey,
snowbank.
Get out of whatever you're in.
Some little texturing marks that I want the snow to be a little bit rougher.
Super Mega Lark, when is it appropriate to use white in watercolors?
I think whenever it's up to you if you want to use white and when you want to use it. I would say you can either go on with a plan, like I'm going to use white in this because this is the look I want to achieve, or you could kind of wait and see how it goes. And if you feel like you've kind of lost your whites and you just need it to save the painting, or if it's going to improve the painting, I would say do it. There's no art police. I mean, if you're doing a competition, then you maybe just, you might not be able to enter it. But if it's just like for the sake of the art and it's going to improve it, then I would use it. It's completely up to you. I used to be kind of more, purist about that, but I don't think it's necessary. I think you do what's right for your art, and that's why there's mixed media, because you don't have to choose. You can do what you want to do. I want to have there's like a little shrub growing over the fence here, and I kind of like the way that looks, so I'm just throwing some of the thicker branches in with this faux Kolinsky, and then I'm going to go in with a smaller, sharper brush. A little shadow into that peak while I'm at it too. And if you have any questions, go ahead and get them in, because I think we're just about done this. And then we'll be done. We will be starting our weekend, I should say.
Yay! Not that it makes much difference. I don't know. I'm just kind of looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, it's just a different vibe.
Yeah.
I gotta get some Christmas shopping done. Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
you do.
Oh,
I wrapped the gifts that I have. They're not like bowed or ribboned, but I got them wrapped and labeled. I'm excited.
Aren't you special? I never have to what I bought. I've only bought like 4 things.
Hey,
so it's not that big
okay.
of a,
That's okay. You've got it started.
Oh yeah, I need ideas, man. Oh man. Oh, I like that little popper red in there. I think that helps.
Put a squirrel crossing the road in there. I'm just kidding.
Squirrel, yeah. I don't know if I can pop that off just off the top of my head or not. All right. Well, there. You know what? I kind of feel like I want some spatter.
You do have that new brush.
Yes, but I feel like I want controlled spatter. You know what? I've got this stiff fabric brush over here. I'm gonna see if I can spatter some like snow color in there. Let me see. Oh yeah. So I feel like my road was just too I don't know, too smooth or something. Maybe I will get out the big brush though, because I'm curious about it. I haven't used it though. It's probably not time to break it out, but I'm not too. This painting is not precious. I'm not worried about the painting, so I think I will grab that spatter brush. See if I can get some big spatters on there. Let's see. Let's try this. I don't know if it's juicy enough though. I don't know. I think I might need more. Oh, like that. I could just kind of flick it. Oh, that's good. I like that. I'm getting on my brand new sweater though.
You need an ape. Never mind. You don't need a thing. You're all set.
Your face is just. We need a face cam.
No, we don't. That's why I like doing this. My face is not on camera.
I got some spatters in the sky. You know what? I think I'm gonna turn those into a flock of birds flying south. Why don't we do
I'm
that?
gonna Bob Ross it.
I'm gonna Bob Ross this.
Some happy little birds.
We're gonna have some happy little birds happening here.
Happy little birds.
Yes. Let me use this brush. This is a number Foreground. That's what it needed. I was thinking, what does this need? It needs something. It needed happy little birds.
Need some happy little birds. A friend of mine dressed up as Bob Ross for Halloween.
Oh yeah?
It was pretty great because he has a beard anyway, so we got like some hair.
Yeah.
And he had like a fake palette, you know, like a wooden palette like Bob did, and brush. It was pretty.
Nice.
It was pretty funny. And then he had a Bob Ross t-shirt. Oh, it was good.
There we go. I think I like that.
Birds.
All right, I'm gonna take my tape off because I like to see the white border.
And people do like to watch you taking the tape off.
Which is not sticking very very fast because of the heat gun, and also because it's cheap Dollar Tree tape.
The birds do look nice.
There we go. And there we have it. Let's get it in the frame here. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a pretty simple one. If you have any questions after the show, then just go ahead and put them in the comments, and I will pop in here and there now and then and answer them. So, all right. No more questions? We're good?
We're good.
Awesome. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week. Okay. Hopefully we're live. It says we're live. I'm Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter, and I am here with my daughter Maisie.
Hey guys.
You'll want to speak up because the microphone's closer to me and I am louder than you, so I know you got it in you, Maisie. Maisie will take any questions that you have and she will relay them to me. So I'm trying not to be distracted. I'm so out of practice doing this, guys, so please bear with me. Now, there is a reference photo that I have on my
on my Google Drive, which I have a link to in the video description, and also on my blog, so you can download that. And it's going to be a vertical landscape. I don't know if you're able to see this without a lot of glare. I'm going to actually switch over to my other screen so I can see what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and not past Lindsay 30 seconds ago doing it, because it's so confusing. So, do you guys feel out of sorts with everything going on? I know I do. Maisie, do you have any questions yet?
No.
Okay, can you guys in the chat let us know that you can see and hear us? That would be super helpful. I did not print out my reference photo. I have it on my phone, so I'll probably have to keep restarting that. But hey, I've walked there a million times. I remember what it looks like.
Yeah, we have good audio.
Oh, good. Oh, wonderful. I'll try not to drop anything close to the microphone. All right, so I did this sketch in an Arteza sketchbook. I really enjoyed these sketchbooks. You can find them on the Arteza website or on Amazon. I like to do my practice stuff in here just because it's really inexpensive. It is a cellulose paper, so I'll know that this will work well on a cheap cellulose paper or on a fine cotton paper. So really, you can use what you have. We're going to use 3 colors, and I've taken them out of my palette and just put them in this little tray here so I don't get confused. Alizarin Crimson, and this is more of a red rose crimson. This is from the Turner 1862 line, which I am very pleased to announce that I actually have a couple signature lines with jerrysartorama.com. This is part of the Lindsay Weirich Lucas signature series. I have not even unwrapped mine yet. I'm actually using my older stuff because these colors are in this set as well. And I can't wait to unwrap these and swatch them out and make a cute little card. But I haven't had a chance to do that yet, so now we can just look at how precious and pristine it is, because it won't look like that for long. It'll look like my older set. So we got Alizarin Crimson, which is a modern pigment that is less fugitive. It's PR 176. We have Permanent Yellow Deep, which is PO 62, so it's technically an orange pigment, but it's a super, super gorgeous, rich color. And we've got Prussian Blue PB27, and that's going to give us this earthy, moody, wintry primary that we can work from and still mix all the colors we need to use. And I just did a little mixing chart here in my sketchbook. That's what's fun about sketchbook work, is you don't have to worry about making it pretty or making it messy. It's purely for your information. So I'm going to set that aside and open up my block of watercolor paper. I'm going to, I wanted to zoom in so that you'd have the best, kind of the best view on your screen. So the top inch of my paper, let's see, is not going to be shown, but that'll just be sky and it won't be a big deal.
How much is the set?
Oh gosh, on the spot here. I do have a link to it. I think this one is $135 for the set. It comes with a set of Mimic Squirrel brushes. It comes with a set of 24 Lucas watercolors in a tin palette. And it comes with a 20-page block of Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton paper. We're going to start by, but please use whatever you have. You don't need to buy this set to be able to do this project. I tried to use pigments or colors that are very easy to replicate no matter what you have. Alright, so we're going to do our sketch, and I'm already regretting not printing out my photo because I typically don't sketch from my phone. We're going to start off with a horizon line a little bit above halfway. Maisie, if I go off the screen, you'll just need to tell me that something is happening off the screen so I can adjust.
Okay. How do you prevent warping as you paint?
Well, on this paper, it's sealed on all 4 sides, and there's a little gap where you'd put your knife in, just a butter knife afterwards, to take that top sheet off. But if I'm not painting on a block, I'll just tape it down. In my sketchbook, I just taped down around where I was painting. I'm going to put a horizon line in there. Or you can actually stretch it where you soak the paper and you tape it down with a gummed paper tape, like the kind you get at the post office. So this photo was taken looking up a hill, and we've got so we've got our road kind of coming over, going off the side, disappearing off the side, and wrapping around again. I'm going to draw this darker than you want to, though. Don't make it as dark as I'm doing it. We've got this hill up here. We've got a couple trees. I'm just going to put the tree trunks in here. Oh yeah, I want to get the snowbank in here as well. How many people do we have watching, Maisie?
190.
Oh, wonderful. I didn't know if anybody would come back. Anybody would still remember my live streams.
Well, they're all really excited.
Oh, good.
Okay, question.
Yes.
What yellow and blue are you using?
It's in the video description. It is Permanent Yellow Deep, and it is Prussian Blue. Let's see. We're going to draw a little barn over here. This farm is down the road from my house, and when we first moved here, this farm is no longer in operation, but when we first moved here, 20-something years ago, 21 years ago, there would always be these cows in the field, and they would get loose frequently, and I would be jogging, and sometimes you would have cows right in the middle of the road. It was so strange. Let's see. I'm going to put the little farm itself up here higher on the hill. I'm going to draw a rectangle. This is far away. We're not putting a lot of details here. And if it's a little crooked or wonky, that'll be great because it will look like an old abandoned farm, which is kind of what I'm going for here. I'm not putting a ton of detail. It looks like there's kind of like a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe it might even just be a pile of wood or something, maybe an old trough or something. I'm not sure exactly, but I'm just going to sketch that in there. We got a fence down here, which I thought was really kind of interesting looking. We've got just a little kind of stray post on its own, which I think they would tie the edge of the fence to close it off from trespassers or to keep the cows in, which was very ineffective back in the day. And we're going to put a bar across here. And it's just going to kind of disappear. I'm actually going to put this. There's a big rock. A lot of my drawing I'm doing from memory, just because I've walked this route so much. Got some rocks. This post is almost buried into them a little bit. A little bit of a post sticking out back there. And then in the center, we've got this bar coming up. And then we've got a diagonal shape line bar coming from each side, and then we've got another one. Very simple here. And then we're going to have two more tines going across. And that's really all we need to do for that. Make sure you get double up that line for the road. It actually does go right off the page. I think it looks better when you can see the turn. You can see the turn on the page, but it's up to you. Don't cram it in there. If it doesn't want to go in there naturally, don't cram it in. Chances are Matt's going to cut it off anyway if you're going to frame it. So that's really all we need to put in here. If you have any stray lines, use a soft white eraser. If your pencil has one, great. If not, then you could use one. Just use any white plastic eraser. Is just fine. And then I like to take a big soft brush to whisk away the crumbs. We'll use this one. Sometimes they get a little sticky on the cotton paper because it kind of wants to grip it sometimes. And another eraser I really like are these Tombow monos, because you can go in and actually take little bits out. I think I'm going to erase this line back here because we're going to have some trees growing back there, and we don't want to have a pencil line in the middle of it. Do we have any questions?
We do not.
All right. Hope everybody's well in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So, Maisie, how long have you been out of school?
Let's see. It's been I think it's the third week we've been out. But I mean, I've been doing school just from home.
Right, right. Your school has been on the ball. I'm wetting the sky. I'm going over the trees that we drew in, but don't go over the buildings, or don't go down over the road yet. Just the sky area. And you can do this with any brush. This one was handy, so I'm using that one. You can also tip your paper. Make sure it's shiny. See, if I tip it, I can see, because with cotton paper, it's going to take more water than when I was working my sketchbook. I didn't need to put a lot of water because that cellulose paper is thin. Your cotton paper is going to absorb more, so you've got to put more down there. Sometimes you got to wet it twice, or it will, it'll just kind of sink in, and then you go to paint, and then you've got nothing to, you got no water to help carry your paint around. So what I like to do is actually wet it once, and then I'll mix up my colors, and then I'll wet it again, and then I'll paint. So it just gives it gives you a really even surface.
All right, we have some questions.
Sure.
First one, how are you going to do this painting, wet on wet or dry?
A combination of both. I'm wetting the sky here, and then we're going to paint the sky, and then we'll wet the road, we'll paint the road, and then a lot of the other stuff will just kind of wet as needed. So just like with most of my paintings, it's a combination of starting off wet into wet and then working in wet into dry. So I'm going to go to a number 10 round. Anything between a 8 and a 12 is going to be fine. So if you have, you know, the Mimic brushes from before, totally fine. Then the set that comes with my paints has the in-between sizes, but they come to a nice point. You don't need to have all those brushes. I'm a terrible salesperson, but you know, if you already have the other set, you know, you don't need it. Look in your paint box, see what you have. If you're running out of paint, then this is a great set to get.
What type of erasers do you recommend for non-cotton paper and for 100% cotton paper?
Honestly, I'm a big fan of any white plastic eraser. You can even find them in dollar stores and multi-packs, or like the Mars. Mars makes some nice white ones. Statler makes some nice white ones. You want the white plastic because it's non-abrasive. These Tombos have white plastic erasers in them. Your pink erasers, like your Pink Pearl, they're quite abrasive. Your art gum erasers, a lot of people like those, but they're really messy, I think. And kneaded erasers can leave a little residue. So my favorite is any white plastic eraser. They're very inexpensive, and they get the job done.
Do the Lucas paints flow well? My Mary paints don't flow as well.
I think they flow pretty well. I chose the Lucas instead of the Turner today because they have a bit of a moody quality that I really like. But yeah, I find them to flow just fine. Now I'm going to re-wet the sky, like I mentioned before. If you're on a cellulose paper, you probably don't need to do this. And it's not going to take as much water as that first layer. But it's just going to help us so we don't get too much color in our sky.
How do you know which colors to use in mixing for any paintings?
That's practice. When I did my little sketch that I showed you at the beginning of the video, I work out the colors that I'm going to use. I figure out what's going to work together. Do I have enough colors that I can get everything I need? I think you have a stronger painting if you use the fewest amount of colors that you can manage and still get all the values and colors that you need. You're going to have a much more professional looking painting if you use fewer colors per painting. Alright, so now I'm going to grab my round. I'm going to do a little mixing. I don't want this blue on its own because it's a little too strong. So I'm going to take a little bit of crimson to it and just tone it down a little bit. This was very gray. It almost felt like I was in a black and white times because it was just so dull. I posted it on Instagram and people thought that I had made it like a black and white photo. It's like, nope, this is how it looked. I actually might have even added a little bit of color to it. Now actually, I like to use the biggest brush I can handle, so I'm going to go to that the original set of Mimic brushes. If you're working on a smaller scale like the sketchbook, use that number 10, but I want to cover more ground, so I'm going to use a larger brush. And I think I want a little bit more pigment. So I'm going to go in a little bit more of that blue, a little bit more of the red. Plus I'll be using more of this gray. Hey Maisie, would you go knock on your brother's door and ask him to pipe down a little bit? Alright, now that looks like it's going to be a little strong, so I'm going to add some more water to that. Now hopefully you can see that. I never know in these really pale shades what's going to show. I'll scoot this down a little bit because I know that top little bit of the painting is going to be cut off. And I'm just kind of whisking it in. So you just want to put it in just a touch darker than what you're going for, because it is going to dry a little bit lighter, especially when you have a really wet wash and a wet background. But you don't need to have too much extra. Now I'm cleaning my brush, dabbing it on a rag, which is off camera, but it's just an old cut up t-shirt, and then I'm just going to whisk some of those colors down a little bit. So it's almost going to soak up a little bit of that color. Oops, I just got into the building there. Now for blotting on my paper, I do prefer a paper towel to a rag, because I find that rags just are not as absorbent for water, for picking up color or water on the paper as a rag is. Now we're going to move on to the water, onto the road, and you can pre-wet the road if you want to, or you can just go right ahead and paint it, starting with it wet and then just kind of dragging the color down. Since I have a bunch of the sky color left, I think I'm just going to wet it with the sky color, and then I'll add my color to that. Because I like to get a lot of color, especially if I'm doing something gray, like a gray day. I like to have a lot of color in that. Maisie, who do we see in the chat today? What friends have joined us? I know you probably don't know them all, because you've only moderated a few times and it's been a while.
I don't know if I might pronounce some names wrong. We have Joe Maysky.
Oh, hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe is a regular.
Mm-hmm. Eve Bolt.
Eve, wonderful. She does a Saturday live stream.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she does cat illustrations. They're so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Who else do we have chatting?
Like moderators or just people?
Everybody. They don't have to just be moderators.
Yeah.
I know those two are moderators. They help me out a lot with questions that come in.
We have Vicky.
Hello, Vicky.
DIY with Dory.
Oh, wonderful. She's also in my critique club class.
Paul Adams.
Wonderful.
I'm gonna feel bad if I don't say everyone's name.
That's okay. That's okay. I can always go back after the stream and check.
Paulo.
Wonderful. I'm gonna mix some purple. I'm gonna take the red and the blue. They make a really rich kind of eggplant color, and I'm gonna start adding some of that into the road.
How do you paint something white on white? I know that nothing is ever really white, but it's hard getting any definition with white on white, like painting a white cat on a white piece of paper.
It's really good if you can put a background in, because you do need to have some sort of contrast in order for it to work. And a lot of times you have to just really look for all the undertones, because nothing is truly white. You'll see browns, you'll see grays, you'll see pinks, you'll see greens, you'll see all these different colors. So you have to just really find those other colors. And if you can bring in like a device to improve the contrast, like if you could put the cat maybe on a quilt or on something that's going to give you that contrast, it's going to be really helpful.
I got a question.
Yeah?
They're talking about how we did YouTube. Yeah, well, we still do art sometimes. It got really busy, so we don't make videos anymore, which is kind of sad, but... Yeah.
For the Crafty Twins, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you can always start up again.
Of course. Okay, what brand of paint are you using?
I'm using the Lucas 1862, my new signature line of paints through Jerry's Artorama. It's linked down below if you want to learn more. Now I'm adding a little bit of yellow into my mix, and you can see it's making everything gray down because we've taken those primary colors and we have added added the third. So you mix three primary colors together, you're going to get a neutralized color. It will be a brown or a gray depending on the quantity of the other colors that you have in the mix. So if you have more yellow, for instance, you're more likely to go to brown. If you have more blue, it's more likely to go to gray. Everything is very brown and gray these days around here, so it's a really great way to learn your colors, is to just stick to your some primaries and play with that. Now I want to warm up my road a little bit more towards the bottom of the painting. That would be towards the viewer, where the viewer's standing. You're kind of standing looking up over the hill. So I'm going to add some more red and yellow to it, and that's going to brown it a little bit more. I'm going to shoot for an hour here today, guys. It might take me a little bit longer. Like I said, I'm kind of out of practice. I'm glad I did a painting ahead of time, a sketch ahead of time, just so I would, I could go on autopilot a little bit. I think I want to add just some kind of red in there on its own. I'll take a photo and post it on my blog when we're done. That way you can see the true colors in case the computer monitor was off at all for the video. I never can tell. I did adjust it before I went live, but it does seem bluer when I'm looking back at my monitor, but that could just be my monitor there. Somebody make a funny comment? I like to hear the funny comments.
Well, it said you should start up again. You and your sister make me laugh. You both are very beautiful, and no, you don't sound like a boy or man. I remember you said that in one of your videos. Thank you.
Aw.
How do you avoid wrist pain when painting?
I paint from my shoulder, so I'm moving my whole arm when I'm working. If you're cramped up and just moving your wrist, I think that could give you some trouble. Now the sky is still going to be damp, so we're going to go ahead and work on some of the faraway foliage. And again, we need all three colors because we want to make a gray. Now, if you want to use your paints fresh from the tube, like I did in Sunday's video, you can do that. In fact, if you're working on something larger, that could be handy. This is a pan set, but I do a tube set of turners as well, or you probably have tubes at home in your stash for refilling your palettes. If you need a lot of color at once, like when you're using three colors, you're going to notice that you are constantly going back for paint because you're using a limited palette. So there's nothing wrong with using your paints from the tube. Oh, I think I let my sky dry up a little bit too much because my lines are fairly crisp. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put in a few trees. Let's see how wet this paper is. We'll put in a few conifers here. I guess it's still a little bit damp. I probably should have gone a little bit quicker, but it's live, right guys? It's live. You gotta cut people slack. I like to walk the dog up this road because there's rarely any traffic, and I just like looking at the fields, and sometimes there'll be people out, some loggers out in the woods. It smells so good when they're cutting. The trees are real simple. For these pine trees, what I'm doing is just kind of dabbing a line, and then I'm just kind of dabbing a zigzag as I work my way down. One thing I want to mention is that the replay will be available for anybody that wants to chat now and paint later, and also all the comments you type in the chat are available with the replay. So that was something that started last year, I think. And I think it might even tell you that before you start chatting. But just in case you didn't know, I just want you to know that anything that you type in the comments now is available for future viewing.
Is it safe to use a rag with watercolor?
Oh, sure. Like just a rag, R-A-G, like a painting rag or a t-shirt. Yeah. Yeah, my favorites are old t-shirts, old cotton t-shirts. For like wiping my brush, like this is just a part of it. I just cut them up in a bunch of pieces so I don't accidentally, rather than just keeping a t-shirt around that I'll forget and then put in somebody's, hamper after I do the laundry. I cut it up so it doesn't accidentally make its way back into the clothing rotation. But yeah, that works great.
Someone said your hand is in the way. We can't see what you're doing.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if there's much I can do about that without. Maybe if I prop it up more.
You could maybe angle your hand, not to be in front, but to the side. That might be hard.
Maybe I can actually set. Maybe if I can go like that. I'm in a habit, especially if I'm doing, like, if I need a fine line, I work perpendicular, and that it just gives you a sharper point. But I'll try to go off to the angle a little bit.
I bought a sheet of watercolor paper when home.
Okay, we should be up and running again. It'll take 30 seconds to catch up. Let me know when you see the screen come back. Oh, is it back? Are we back?
So,
oh,
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. YouTube is telling me the connection is not great right now. So usually that's just how it starts off and then it goes better. So hopefully everything is okay. Oh, now I remember why I stopped live streaming. Technical problems. All right, I should probably tell everybody else to stay off the internet, but the whole world's on the internet right now because there's no school. And all right, I'm going back to my other screen. Wake my phone back up again because I don't know how to make it so that it just stays awake. And I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm going to have to do something a little tricky because my painting has dried on me and I need some fuzzy foliage here. So what I'm going to do is kind of put it in where I need it. And then I'm going to clean my brush off. Blot it in my rag, which I think is on camera now because I zoomed out a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of hit that edge and let it feather out. So my brush is clean. I'm hitting the edge with the tip of my brush and just kind of faking it here, letting it feather out so it looks like I've got this nice soft blend. Or really I just had to kind of go and partially wet. Now if I do end up with a bloom here, it's going to be alright because it's going to look like those faraway trees. If you're really bloom shy and afraid of that, then you can dry it with a heat tool and then come back. But I think actually a bloom would make it look like faraway mountains, which we have in the background. So,
someone asked if you could repeat the mix for the trees.
Yep, it's all three of your primaries. That's to get the grayish brown area. You're just going to do, I like to start off with a purple, so I'll do the red and the blue. And then I will add little bits of yellow until it gets to the level of gray. If it goes brown, I just add a little more blue. And what I love about this mix is that, and with the Lucas colors in general, is that you can get this color, because the colors tend to granulate a lot in this line, you can get a pretty color separation. I think they might not grind their pigments as finely as some other brands. Let's say like the Turners are super smooth. I find that these are just a little bit more moody and they tend to separate a little bit in mixes, especially really watery mixes, and I like that. So, so I choose that when I'm going for a painting like that. Now I do have a little bit of a hard line there that I don't like, so I'm just going to tap it a little bit. I'm also working on a board that's slightly angled, and so my stuff is going to want to run down. Something else I wanted to show you here, I'm going to tip it and bring it up to the camera a little bit. So look at those trees and how they're pink. That's because I painted over them with the water to get that kind of washy background foliage, and when I went over it with the water, it lifted up the yellow and the blue, which are more sedimentary than the red, which is more staining. So that red clung to the paper, so you get that, like, it lifted off the lifting colors and it left the staining one behind, which is kind of neat, I think, anyway. Did we have any more questions before I plow on here?
Do you have any 101 classes coming up? And if I pay for the classes, can I get to them all a time.
Yes, you have lifetime access. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm a terrible salesperson. I put my classes on sale for the month of April. Use the coupon code NOFOOLING, and that's in the video description, and you can save 50% on any of my full courses over at Teachable. There's a link in the description. Yes, if you buy them now, if you're working, I know not everybody gets, this time off to stay home and avoid getting sick. And thanks to everybody that's still working and making our country go during this time. Yes, you can buy the class now, and you can take it when you have time. You can retake it. You can brush up. You have lifetime access. If there was ever a time where I thought that, like, Teachable, the platform that I use to have my classes, was going to go out of business and, like, take them offline, what I would do is I'd make everything downloadable and just let everybody know. But yeah, you can stream them right there. You can use the app if you have an iDevice like an iPad or iPhone, and you can download them onto your iPad or iPhone very easily. So yeah, you have lifetime access. So another thing I want to do is get a little bit of color into the snow. And again, I want to have a gray, but I want this to be a cooler gray. So I'm going to do blue. I'm going to do a little bit of red. So since I know I want this to be a cooler color, my dominant color in this mix is going to be my coolest color, which is blue. My next color will be red, because that's the next coolest. Even though you're like, what are you talking about? Red's not cool. This is a cool leaning red, which means it is more like pink versus orange. And then I'll put a little bit of yellow just to desaturate. Okay. And now I'm not going to pre-wet this this area in here. I'm going to add in little, like, kind of drifts. And you don't have to go that dark. I know that's kind of dark. I'm going to add a few little snow drifts. And then I'm going to clean my brush. And I am going to blend them out, but blend them up so that we've got that kind of, like, shadow behind the drift.
You can download classes on Android too, right?
You can stream the classes on Android. I don't have them downloadable because you can't. You could like, if you download a file, it's not going to keep it with the with all of the, like, the reference photos and in order with the curriculum and everything, because that's part of the platform. But if you have the iDevice and you download the Teachable app, any of the classes that you purchase, you have access to in the Teachable app, so you keep all that stuff together. So, like, if there was an instance where Teachable was going to go away, I can't imagine that happening, but you never know. I would say, okay, you can download everything, but then you just have all those files, and I think it might be a little confusing, so that's why I keep it streaming with lifetime access, just because it's so much easier to get through and find everything. I hope that makes sense. But you don't need an internet connection if you're on if you're on, like, an app or whatnot. And I have made exceptions for students. The thing is, I also have to worry about piracy, which is when bad actors kind of come in and steal your content and then try to sell it themselves. So that's why I do it that way, just to kind of make it easier to learn and to protect my my classes a little bit. So now we have this nice little kind of rolling hills in there. I'm going to take this color, I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to it, get a more neutral gray, less of a cool gray. I can even add a little bit more of the red.
Can you put that code discount and also the name of the site where you go so that you can have the information?
It's in the video description.
Alright.
And it's on my blog. So I'm going to add some shadows here in the foreground of the snowbank. So I'm putting a little bit behind this snowbank as well. I can grab a smaller brush and I can actually just drag up a few little, just nondescript clumps. Not even really grasses, I'm just kind of like breaking up that hard line. And when you go to put in any bushes or anything, it'll just be kind of like ambience. But it will define that snowbank in front a little bit. And I'm using a flat brush. You can use whatever you want, but I'm just kind of very sloppily tapping in some shadows. And this is wetting the paper. It's also just kind of giving me a little bit of form. Now I'm going to mix up a nice dark. And again, I'll start by making a purple with my blue, my red. Get it nice and dark. And don't worry about contaminating the pans, because you can just take a clean brush and wipe any of that off. If you were working from fresh paint, you'd want to make sure you don't like contaminate a whole puddle of fresh paint, because you know how far it goes. You don't want to contaminate the fresh paint, because that could be like 5 or 6 paintings that you would lose the paint for. I'm so stingy. Look at that, like tiny little drops from Saturday's painting or Sunday's painting. I still have on my palette because I'm so stingy. I don't want to waste it, because it's perfectly good paint because it dried out in there. I'm going to go in and throw in some rocks that are just kind of being uncovered by the snow. So you make a nice dark color. When I'm doing a limited color painting, like the 3 colors, I try to choose colors that are a little bit more intense, because I can always water them down and I have more variety. So rather than using, like, say, a cobalt teal, which would be like a softer blue, I know I'm not going to get a dark purple with that. So then I'd have to have another blue in there, or I'd need a purple in there, which is nothing wrong with that. But if I am trying to be limited, then I try to pick the more versatile colors.
Can you recommend some books on art basics like composition, value, etc.? Also books on drawing.
Oh, sure. My favorite watercolor book is Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Watercolor by Mary Appeloff. And I think I even have that in my bookcase over there, because all my art books are down here in my studio instead of upstairs in my bookcase now. That's probably my all-over best watercolor book. Let's see, for composition, there's for drawing, there's one that a lot of people really like. It's by Betty Edwards, and it's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. That's specifically a book designed to teach adults how to draw.
There's this question, I think I tried to answer it, but then the live stream shut down.
Oh.
I wanted to ask if there's any way to work on unsized watercolor paper.
I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
brought a watercolor paper which was unsized and can't find any gelatin around.
Okay, yeah, I have never come across unsized paper. First, I would say try the other side of the paper, because some papers are only sized on one side. Like Indigo is a brand that only sizes on one side of the paper. So I would try the other side first, because that could be the situation that you're in. You can buy lifting preparation. I think Winsor & Newton makes it, and you can use that for sizing. The cheapest way to go, and I'm not sure if it would be archival, but it probably is, because, I mean, you don't see people's wallpaper going, going yellow, really, would be to get wallpaper sizing. That you can find in a hardware store. It's usually in like a it looks like a milk carton, and it's powder, and you mix it with water. So that would probably be a thing to try. Lifting preparation is going to be expensive, but you could paint the entire sheet with lifting preparation, let it dry, and then do your painting. I'm going to switch to a round brush, my number 10 round. I don't know how much you spent on the paper. If you know the brand of the paper, and it's like, it may have been a mistake, like it might have been faulty, you might be able to, like, if you know the brand of the paper and you know it's a paper that is typically sized, you could contact the manufacturer and have it fixed. I think that there's a YouTuber, Teo, his YouTube channel, I think it's called Parka Blogs, or he has a blog called Parka Blogs. I think he did something about sizing watercolor paper, like a video on that. I would recommend checking that out before you do anything or buy anything, because he might have some advice, because sometimes your watercolor paper goes bad, your sizing goes bad on it, especially in really humid environments. And he's an artist in Singapore where it's very humid. I think he would be a better resource than me for answering that question.
He said, I tried using both sides. The issue is due to the condition here. We can't get outside.
Oh, so he's at home, or he or she is at home. Well, you could order wallpaper sizing, probably from Amazon. If you have a glue, you could thin way down, like a Mod Podge, and thin it way down. Watercolor ground would also work. if you have it. But if you don't have it, I mean, that's not going to help you. I would try thinning down some glue and brushing it over a super, super thin layer. Like, you don't want to see any shiny spots because that will make your paper repel. You just want enough. Oh, you know what? I bet liquid starch. If you have liquid starch, I bet that would work. That would probably work just fine. Maybe even like cornstarch. I want to bring some of the road color into the bank here. So I'm going to mix up a nice dark purpley gray. So again, start with the darker colors.
How much do we care about pigments when considering to buy watercolor paints?
Well, you know, it's a lot of artists do not care about pigments, but they do care about light fastness, so they'll just go by the right light fastness ratings on the paint. And if you're buying from a professional manufacturer that's been in business for a while, that makes professional range paint, you can trust their light fastness ratings. Just make sure you know what their ratings are, because some companies go on the blue wool scale, which is the scale of 1 to 8, and the higher the number, the better the light fast. Some go on the ASTM, which is a scale of 1 to 3. The higher the number, the worse the light fast. So just make sure you know what scale you're looking at. But I would probably be more concerned with light fast than pigment information if you don't want to get down in the weeds and pay attention to that. I don't think it's really that important to learning how to paint. I think it's more important where if you're like selling your work and you're worried about your paintings not fading. But like if you're buying from Lucas or you're buying from Turner, pretty much anything like the bigger companies sell, like if you're shopping on Jerry's Artorama, I would say any major brand that they sell is going to have light fastness information. So like I'm talking Winsor Newton, Golden, Lucas, Turner, Daniel Smith, M. Graham, Sennelier, Schminke, any of those brands, and there's more. There's so many good brands out there, reputable brands. They're going to have light fast information, so you don't need to remember what all these pigments are. But it's nice to know, because like if you're painting at home and you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many paints. I wonder if I have something that will work for Lindsay's tutorial. You know, if I say use alizarin crimson and I gave you the pigment number, the reason I gave you the pigment number for that is because alizarin crimson, the natural, is a fugitive color. And it's also a little bit more bloody looking, rather than being more pinky like this, which almost looks like a bit of a quinacridone. I believe that is a quinacridone pigment that the hues are made out of. It looks pinkier. So if you're using regular alizarin crimson, it's going to look fine, it's going to work, but it's going to look just a little bit different. And you might need more of it because it will be a less tinting. And then the reds could fade out of that painting if you hang it in the light. So this is an instance where the hue is better than the actual original pigment. But then on the other hand, if you're looking at the famous painters, you're looking at watercolors done by Turner or John Singer Sargent, they're using fugitive pigments left and right because that's all they had. So, it's as important as you want it to be, I would say. I think it's interesting. I think it's fun to learn about the chemicals behind what we use. But it shouldn't, you shouldn't not paint with a color you love, like opera, or, that's a very fugitive color, or anything, just because it's fugitive. Work in your sketchbook. That's going to protect it from light. I don't know. I think that, if I know a pigment is fugitive, I'm less likely to use it, or if I'm reviewing paints and I know the paints are fugitive, I am less likely. I have to factor that into a review. Like those new Altenew paints, the colors are gorgeous and they're so easy to work with, but it's like there's typos in the pigmentations. It's almost like I wish they didn't tell me what pigments were in it, because I can see the typos and I can see that some colors are just not customary watercolor pigments and they're going to fade. So I don't know. I don't think it's important as far as learning how to paint. But I do think it's important as far as, if you're concerned with the longevity of your painting, you're going to sell your paintings. All right. Let's see. I've got this full of really dark pigment. I'm just going to draw a few rocks in here. You don't have to. I like rocks, though, so I like the idea of rocks kind of peeking out underneath these little drifts of snow. I guess that's all I really have to say about pigments. I find them interesting. I don't think they should keep you from, I don't think you should fuss about them or worry about them too much, especially when you're learning. You know, it's unlikely that you're just starting watercolor today and you're going to be selling your paintings for $10,000 tomorrow. Embrace the joy of it. Any other questions?
No.
How many people do we have with us?
283.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh my gosh. People remembered my channel.
Yeah, we lost a lot when it started buffering.
Oh, shoot.
But I think a bunch of them came back. Though I've been trying to refresh the page.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think when the replay comes back, I think when that happens, like, YouTube smushes that time. Like, it takes away that time if it's lost the stream. I don't think you have, like, minutes of black. I think it, like, I think it just takes it out and compiles it together.
mm-hmm.
Thank goodness. I am so not techie. I thought about trying the mobile live streaming, like, with my phone, but I just didn't dare because I've never done it before, and I didn't want to have any added stress. Although, man, I watched a video on it by YouTube on how to mobile live stream last night, and it looked so simple. It's like, geez, maybe I should. All right, let's get these trees, these tall trees in there. They're kind of our focal point, and I'm actually going to scoot. Are you okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to scooch down. If you want to stand by the space heater for a couple minutes and warm up.
Okay.
She's in shorts. Oh my gosh, she's in running shorts, and she's down here in the refrigeration unit of my craft room. What?
Where's this space?
It's right next to me. I'm practically sitting on it over here because I'm in a sweater and wool socks and jeans, and I am always gold. You can run upstairs and put pants on if you want to.
Yeah.
Everyone can chat amongst themselves. Even Joe can keep everyone in line. Anyone starts getting weird, because it's, everybody's home from school, so whenever we have streams on days where people are home from school, we tend to get the trolls, the potty mouths.
Right, question.
Okay.
About Oprah Rose, I love the look, but it seems no matter what the brand, it's highly fugitive. Is Quinn Rose a good alternative? A lot of books, floral artists use it, which I find confusing.
Yeah, quinacridone colors are actually pretty light fast. They are very, very bright, and pinks and purples have kind of a hard time being light fast, but quinacridones and cyans are quite, for how bright they are, they're quite light fast. And in fact, what's going to happen with the Opera Rose, it's not that it's going to just completely fade away, it's just going to darken because your opera is made with a quinacridone pigment with a fluorescent dye, and it's that fluorescent dye that craps out on you after a while. So it will just darken. It's not like it's going to disappear completely. But yeah, definitely go with a quinacridone rose. Go with a permanent rose madder. Check your light fastness ratings because different companies will use different pigments, but they're usually like a PB19, and yeah, you can definitely get something that's going to be a little more stable for you. But don't freak out completely, because even Opera Rose, it's going to darken and you're going to have some like a permanent rose left behind, whereas like the old alizarin crimson will bleach to like nothing. It's highly fugitive. So in fact, your quinacridone rose looks a lot like this the Lucas alizarin crimson. It's probably a little bit weaker. But it's, the quinacridone rose is a little bit weaker usually, but it's definitely a good substitution. Okay, I want to have a little bit of a green base in this color now because I'm going to do some foliage on the tree. Yep, and it's anything with that, I think it's BV10 is the pigment. It's, it could be wrong. It's something similar to that. It's a dye, it's a fluorescent dye, and that just doesn't last. It also doesn't photograph great. Any of those fluorescent colors are harder to photograph too. So if you're painting and you're thinking that you might want to do prints with your work, it's best to avoid the fluorescence. And it's also best to avoid the fluorescence if you're not doing prints and you're going to hang them because they'll fade. Was there anything else with that question, or did I get to all?
I think you got it.
Alright, so here I'm going to put in some foliage, but I'm working with that number 10, and my brush is very juicy and loaded up, so I'm just putting in, not all the branches, I'm just putting in some. They kind of kick up a little bit towards the top, and as they come down and they get heavier and more loaded with snow, not a lot of snow here, the snow didn't even last, they start to tip down. And I'll be dripping some other colors in here, so it kind of just making a little bit of a path also. And look at my water bucket here. I'm just going to bring it in. Notice cleaning in the dirty side, picking up fresh water in the clean side. So you should have 2 buckets of water. One should be gross and dirty, and one should look like you could drink out of it. If you are, remembering to clean in the dirty side first. And I almost got rid of that bucket when I was, decluttering a couple of years ago because it was so grimy looking. But, it's just like the best watercolor bucket because it's got these ridges to knock all that extra paint off my brush. So I'm like, well, it looks gross. It's not as cute as mason jars, but man, it just works so much better than a couple mason jars on my table. Sometimes you gotta go for function over form. And I'm not gonna bring the branches all the way down. Get them sparse towards the bottom. Here's a fun part. Now we're going to put in some pure color into those trees. Get some, knock a little bit of the water off my brush. And I'm going to tip it because I want to just kind of throw in some of these colors and let them run. But you want them to be strong, so you don't want to weaken them out too much. Don't worry about detail yet. We'll go in with a smaller brush for detail.
Question.
Yes.
I feel like I'm going to say some of these words wrong. But all of my gambogos from all brands.
Gamboge, maybe?
Yeah.
Yep.
Feel gelatinous.
Gelatinous, okay.
Is it my luck or is that a thing with those?
Gamboge feels gelatinous. I'm just going to double can you turn your screen around? I just want to double check that. That's what that word is. All my gamboges from all brands. Paint and hiding. Can you tell me if they're tubes or pans that you're talking about? I have not had that issue with gamboge. I squeeze mine. I both have tubes and I have some some that I've squeezed out. I have the new gamboge, the new gamboge, and the old new gamboge. There's some yellow in here. Let me know what she or he says. I'm gonna drip in some yellow here. I gotta do this dripping while everything is wet enough for the paint to travel. Ah, love it. If you need to switch to a smaller brush, I'm sorry if my hand gets in the way. If you need to switch to a smaller brush to get those tips, you can do that. And you can do that after because this paint is really wet that we're flowing in there. Do some blue on it.
So they said mostly pans. That's
strange. I bet it has something to do with maybe you're in a really humid area. Maine's kind of humid, but it's not like it's not like Florida or.
Have you ever used balking board paper? If you have, what did you think? I'm thinking of ordering some, but as I usually use 100% cotton paper, not sure if it'll be okay.
I haven't used that in a long time, but it was fine. I don't remember anything upsetting about it. There. How much more do I want to do to that? Oh, shoot. I guess I'll do a little bit more because I just, you know what? I'm going to see if I can blot that. That was a little extreme.
Are the permanent paints, like permanent rose, worth buying to replace others as far as light fastness improvement?
Well, it depends. Just because something says it's permanent doesn't mean it's any different than something else that you have in your stash already. Like permanent rose would be I don't know, you could use that instead of like any laked pink, like a rose madder or a crimson lake. I think a lot of paints, honestly, are pretty permanent nowadays. They used to have to lake a lot of natural pigments and a lot of dyes, which is they take a dye and they add like a salt or some other mordant to it, and it makes it so that it can bond to the paper, but it doesn't necessarily make it permanent for a long period of time. Like you might get 10 years out of it. But the chemistry is so good now. I don't think you have as much to worry about as far as your paints being impermanent. I think I'm going to leave that like that for now. And a lot of times they're using that common name to get the hue too. So it's probably quinacridone that, like if you have a quinacridone rose already, you've probably got a very similar color in your stash. Look at the pigment number, go to a website like Handprint and look it up and then see what they say. They're really what's the right word? They do not give easy ratings, I guess I would say, or easy grades to pigments. So if they say a pigment is all right, then it should be just fine and dandy. There's another one called like, I don't know, it's colorwheel.com or color info. Just search color pigment information. There's another one out there that is that's also really good. I'll try to remember and link it in the video description after I'm off air for you. I go between the two of them because I think Handprint is a little bit, maybe bullish is the right word, on their ratings. They tend to, when in doubt, give a very poor rating, even though like something could be fine.
Going back to paint and hiding questions about the humidity, if that was the reason. We said I'm in a tropical environment.
Oh, yeah, I bet that's why. And he probably needs to store, or she probably needs to store their palettes flat, because their paint could actually liquefy and goop out of the pans. I've even had that happen, and I'm not in a terribly humid environment, but because I work in a basement and all my paints are stored down here, I've had pans where, like, especially like the Mission Gold, they have just like completely fallen, like oozed out of their pans if I've stored them on the side. I'm again mixing up some neutral. I'm having a little heavier on the yellow and the red to get a little more of a brown, so I get kind of like a woody undertone here. And I'm going to paint the tines of the fence here.
Nine more to 300.
Ooh, share it with your friends, guys. Can we get it up to 300? Now, if you want to add like a more snowy texture to this, you can use a white paint pen, a bleed-proof white, or you could use the white that's in your watercolor set. It might be a little more difficult to get the white in your watercolor set to be as opaque as you want it. And if you do use the white from your watercolor set, I recommend that you use a stiffer brush so you don't damage your nice watercolor brushes if you feel like you have to dig for the paint. I really enjoy Bleed Proof White by Dr. P.H. Martin.
You hit 305.
Nice! Thanks, guys! Somebody must have shared it on their Facebook page or something.
That's fast reacting.
That is fast reacting. Maybe they Snapchatted it. I don't know, can you Snapchat links?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe they did that. I don't know anything about Snapchat. Or TikTok. Maybe they ticked it. Maybe they TikToked it. Can you TikTok links? I don't know.
Probably. I mean, you can share stuff.
Let's see. I gotta define my snowbank here. Where the heck I am. There we go. I think we have another line right there. All right. We kind of neglected our little buildings in the background, so we should probably get some color on those. I just want kind of like a weathered gray color for that, so I'll pick up whatever my palette looks the closest. Take some of that. Actually, this gray looks pretty good. And you can switch to a smaller brush if you want to. And I'm also going to put a little bit of that on this roof here, but I'm going to leave some of the white up there for the snow. I'm going to spread it out with a smaller brush, so don't worry. Don't leave that much globby paint there. Don't need a ton of definition. These are far away. Not that far away, but they're far away enough that you wouldn't see the detail.
Have you heard about Arch's watercolor paper recently having problems with consistency?
I haven't, but I haven't purchased any recently either. I think that, was it, I know Canson owns Arches. I don't know if they recently had a different buyer or something, like, or a different manufacturing mill. But I don't know. I haven't used it in a long time. I mean, I have used it, but I haven't bought it in a long time. I have such a backlog of paper. I'm gonna put a kind of shrub coming out of this.
What paint are you using?
Lucas 1862, my new signature line from Jerry's Artorama. It's linked in the video description. We're using alizarin crimson, which is a cool red, Prussian blue, which is a cool blue, and deep permanent yellow deep, which is a rich kind of gamboge Indian yellow type yellow. You mix them all three together, you can get a nice rich black like I did here. But everything from this tutorial is mixed from those colors. And if that gives you grief, I don't want anyone to have grief, go ahead and use convenience colors or premix colors. That's fine. You don't need any grief. We don't need any grief with what's going on in the world today. We've got enough grief. Everyone's got plenty of grief. They are stocked up on grief. Oh, I like that little, I like that there though. Okay. Now, any place where you have, like, I really love what's happening. I don't know if you can really see it in the video, but, like, I love how the colors kind of mix together. I see some purple and some brown. I love the colors mixing in the trees. I think anytime you can encourage that, it's nice. It just gives you a bits of interest. You can just kind of dab these darker colors that you've made, put some pebbles, rocks, gravel, that sort of thing on the side of the road. There's so much of it this time of year. The sand and salt trucks. Ooh, this needs to be turned into a nice rock. I can see a rock wanting to emerge there. Maybe a few. Don't drive too close to the road. This is pretty rocky over here. Let's see. I want to put a few shrubs around this tree here. I'm just going to stick with this. This is number 2 round. And let's throw a few. This fence has not been opened in a long time. Got a lot of little bushes growing.
Does anyone have any good ideas on how to keep a cat from drinking your dirty paint water?
I have no good ideas, because if I don't clean my paint water, the cat gets into it. And the cat will get it. Well, and I like to leave water ready to go for the next time. So, the cat gets into that too. So, you could put a lid on it. Use like a spaghetti sauce jar and just put a lid. These divided paint buckets come with a little lid that you could put on it. Mine is long gone. I have no idea what happened to it, but I probably got rid of it before I got cats, so I didn't realize that cats in the water would be such an issue. But that's what I would do. Or you could set your palette on top of it like that, or something.
What is the difference between your two signature lines of paint on Jerry's Artorama?
The tube set is Turner watercolors. Generally, Turners are my preference. it's because they're superly finely milled. They're very transparent, very strong. But when I'm doing something that's got more of like a moody feel to it, like a lot of times if I'm painting landscapes, I'll go with the Turners because they're less finely milled. It seems to me, I mean, I'm not a chemist and I don't, know how they make their paint, but they just want to granulate more. I get a little more texture out of them. They have a moody quality to them that I really like. And they also kind of like a bit of a vintage feeling. They almost feel like more of an old world watercolor, where Turner feels much more like a modern watercolor where it's more vibrant and transparent. So that's mainly the difference of why I choose one over the other and why I wanted to offer both sets, because I know people have different preferences. You do not need both of them. I would recommend, maybe even looking on my channel and searching Turner and then searching Lucas and see what you like the look of, because you'll notice different brands just have different feels to them. And, everybody has their favorites. Everybody has like the certain qualities they like. So certainly you don't need both. Both come with the same set of brushes and the same watercolor block. So it's just the paints are different. I think value-wise, the Turner set is a better buy. You get 24 15 milliliter tubes versus 24 half pans, and it's a little bit cheaper. I know at Jerry's they consider the Turner line to be kind of like a lower grade professional and the Lucas to be a little higher grade, but I don't agree with that. I think, actually, I don't know, I generally will gravitate towards the Turner more because I like more vibrant, transparent colors, unless I'm doing something where I want a lot of patina or granulation, earthiness. Like if I'm painting old rusty metal, or, moody landscapes and stuff, I'll go for the Turners.
Do you think you're going to be doing more live streams?
I'm thinking about it. We'll see how this goes. Especially with everybody home, it's nice to have a distraction for folks. Let's see. I want to put a little bit of a snowbank back there. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if people like them, if people want to watch them.
Mm-hmm. Do you like the brand Stonehenge watercolor paper?
I don't have that much experience with them. I have the black. I've used it a little bit. And I've liked that just fine. I'm trying to think what other... and I got a sample pack, and I like the ones in the sample pack. I haven't used it as much as I've used, like, Arches and Fabriano.
What was the wallpaper sizing you mentioned called?
I think it's just called wallpaper sizing, and it looks like any hardware store would have it. Probably even Walmart, if you're going to one of those places for like a necessity or someone in your family is, they could probably grab it for you. I'm thinking it used to come in like a green and white box, kind of like how Plaster of Paris comes. It's probably in the same aisle. But, like, I also think liquid starch, especially since starch is washable, like, it would wash out of your clothing. I'm thinking, and you could get that, like, at any grocery store if you don't have any in your cupboard. Stay Flow, it's like in a blue bottle. But I still think I would water it down a little bit.
Are White Knight's watercolors comparable to Mission Gold? They are very, very cheap here in India, but I really want to try in the Mission's Gold Pure Pigment set.
I would say they're quite comparable. I have both White Knights and the Pure Pigment set from Mission Gold. I would call them very, very comparable to one another, especially if that is a big price difference. Go with the cheaper one, because I would say they're very, very similar in quality. I want to put some darker trees back there, but I don't want them to be too opaque. So I'm kind of going with a neutral gray that's got a little bit of a blue undertone to it. I'm working with a smaller brush because we're getting towards the end of the painting, so I don't want to do anything too drastic with a big brush. I want to turn my painting so I don't end up getting a bunch of getting my hand in a bunch of paint. I just want to bring out some darker trees right behind this. It'll help make the snow on the top of the barn look a little bit more white as well, because we're getting that contrast, just like the woman was asking about the cat. How we get that? How you paint white on white? You've got to find some way to get some contrast in there. I want to bring these trees right off the edge of the page. And because these tend to granulate so nicely, I like to drip in color. Could make a little bit of a green. And drip that in. The great thing about snow on a roof, it doesn't have to be very, it doesn't have to be really symmetrical, because it's got snow, so it'd be kind of like rounded off and whatnot.
Somebody said, I just bought your class and I didn't let me put it in no fooling to get the discount.
Oh, well, send me an email and I'll give you a, I will refund the discount to your credit card. I will check that too. I'll check that when I get off the air to make sure if anybody has bought it, they've gotten the discount. It should. No fooling with the G. That, but I will check that out. But don't worry, if that happens to you guys, I will refund the difference. And if you paid via PayPal, you will see that in your account immediately. All refunds are processed immediately. It just could take up to a week to show up on a credit, like an actual credit card statement.
Okay, Danny keeps asking a question on the paper, but I keep missing it. So I'll keep my eye out for it.
Oh yeah, sometimes the chat can go fast. It's really hard to keep up. I can't keep up if I'm painting and I can't watch the chat at the same time. And sometimes moderators will hop in and answer questions if they know.
Yeah.
All right. What else? What else does this need? I don't like that. I'm going to scrub that out a little bit. I think I want to put a few little just little bursts of foliage here and there. I want it to be just a really soft lavendery gray color, so I'm just kind of mixing a purple with some other grays on my palette till I get what I want. I'm going to turn my page again. And what I'll do to do this, I'm going to start lower and work back. So these will, I can kind of figure out where I want to stop. So I'll start by putting in a little bit of a line, which would be like kind of the shadow under any of these grasses or bushes, whatever we want to call them. And then I'll drag up the bushes from there. And they should get shorter as you work up in your paper. They should get shorter and less defined. So spend your time on these ones in the front, and then any you put in the background should be kind of loosely defined. You in there too. Your brush needs to be wet enough so that you can get a few strokes in there before it runs out. Add a little water to your color as you work back too, just so you don't end up with really dark.
Can you tell me about the class discounts?
Yes. Hey, Maisie, could you scroll down the video description and make sure I did put that in there? Because I'm just wondering, maybe I didn't save the page. It's 50% off any class with a coupon code No Fooling. Make sure you put a G in there.
Yeah,
not
and no space. Is that right?
No space.
Okay.
Just copy and paste it. And it's also on my blog, too, if I did, for some reason, forget to put it in the...
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
Well, the person before put a space between the two words. That might have been it.
Oh, yep, that would have been it. But don't worry, I will refund that. I will refund the difference, so... Yeah, if you ever have an issue with that, you can't get a coupon code to work, or something happens and you forget to put the coupon code in, always just pop me an email, leave me a comment in the class or something, let me know, and I will fix it. Sometimes I don't see, especially if there's a sale and there's so many orders, I won't necessarily see. I'm adding a little bit of yellow to some of the tops of the snowdrifts just to warm them up. Don't go too crazy with the yellow, or it's going to look like it's been visited by some dogs, and we don't want that.
Do you use white in your watercolor paintings? I noticed you included them in your set, and I'd be interested in how you use whites in watercolor.
Sure. I actually have a whole video on using white in watercolor, and there's a couple ways that I would use white in watercolor. One would be I decided that I wanted white on something I wanted to highlight, and I didn't reserve the white with masking fluid or paint around it. That's generally not how I use a white watercolor. Generally, I'll use it for softening a color. Sometimes you're going for like more of a vintage vibe. You're going for the look maybe of like one of the old masters watercolors. Like John Singer Sargent used white, and you know, he's a master. So sometimes you want that kind of gouache or that body color, so you can mix white with the watercolor to use it as gouache. Say you don't want to invest in gouache, you don't want to bother with another type of paint in your stash. It's a great way to try gouache without going in the investment. It also can give you a little bit of texture to your color. So if you're working with color that's really thin and non-textured, by adding a little bit of white to it, you can get that, you can get a little bit of a, it's not really a granulation, but it kind of gives you the appearance of a granulation. Also, if you're thinning something out so much with water to get a super, super pale shade, sometimes it's difficult to control because it's too runny. So by adding a little bit of white instead of all water, it can maintain a little more control. You can also use it for rendering pastel objects where, again, you have to thin it down so much that you're losing the control with your paint. It can also be very handy on objects where you need that kind of creamy texture. You're trying to get the creamy texture of like skin. You might want to use white in that instance. And of course, for like highlights that aren't super, super bright, like if I wanted to add a highlight into this road, but I don't want it to be glaring, I just want like a sheen, I can use white watercolor and it would work out pretty well.
Danny, I'm not seeing your question. I don't know if it's like automatically blocking it or something, but I haven't seen the question that she's asking.
Sometimes multiple, like if somebody copies and pastes the same thing over and over again, the YouTube will trigger it as spam. If any of the other moderators spotted her question,
Yeah,
like
someone else didn't see it either.
That's strange, but she can type.
Yeah.
She can type otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Can you try to rephrase a question, Danny? I'm trying. Maybe there's a blocked word or something. I can't imagine.
Another question. Do you like the Paul Rubens watercolor block that's in the notebook/folder?
I've used the Paul Rubens block. I haven't. I've used their hot press and cold press block, and yes, I do. I like their hot press better. I don't know if the cold press is 100% cotton. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's why. But I use the hot press one that's the block with the weird fold over cover, and I like that quite a bit. It's very easy to use. All right.
What type of sketchbook do you personally prefer and why?
I'm crazy about the Arteza fabric covered sketchbooks. Not the hard covered with the spiral bounds, because I don't like that paper that's in that one, but the fabric ones, I like that a lot. And I like the Stillman & Byrne Mixed Media Beta Series sketchbook, and those papers are almost identical between those two sketchbooks. I think the Arteza one's quite a bit cheaper, but I haven't seen the Stillman & Byrne one around lately to purchase, so I couldn't tell you, but it's called Mixed Media Beta Series for Stillman & Byrne. It's in got a blue soft cover, and it folds nice and flat for travel, and I like the Arteza fabric covered ones that come in a multi-pack, where the Stillman & Byrnes are individual. So you'd have to kind of look and and compare to see price-wise, but I find them to be both very comparable, and I find that they work really well for the type of artwork that I do. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it. If you want to go in and add some white, like we could do that. Do you guys want to see some white highlights? Let me know in the chat here. And if you do, I'm going to paint a few windows on our little barn there. Let me know in the chat if you want to see some, like, maybe some snow on the trees, maybe some on the fence post with some white. I would use bleed proof white. That's what I really like to use if I'm going for highlight as opposed to watercolor, just because it's very easy to just get in and get out. You don't have to fuss or dig. You can use your regular watercolor brushes. So let me know in the chat if you want to see that.
Yes, they do.
Oh, they do. Okay, well, let me get a couple of those windows in there first. If you do not like white in your watercolor, then you don't have to do that. So keep that in mind. I just want to put a couple little doors. Little windows over here. There we go. Okay, I think that is kind of nice too. Let me do that. So this is just in a little jar, and it's like a very super opaque gouache. I think it's the most opaque that I've ever seen, and you do not need much of it. I could just take a little brush load. I'll just grab a new palette.
Can you use white gouache instead of the tube? I don't know.
White gouache?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, white gouache this is a white gouache, a bleed-proof white. And they call it bleed-proof because the colors are not supposed to bleed up through. So if you're using this on marker art or on watercolor or whatever, over markers, it's supposedly not supposed to bleed up. Because sometimes if you're using like a white gouache or white watercolor, sometimes it reactivates your paint underneath and it kind of bleeds through, and this is supposed to not have that happen. I don't know. It's also whiter than the white of the paper. This is a traditional white paper, so it really pops, which is nice, I think. I mean, you might not like it. I like it.
How do you tell when your paintings is done? I usually overwork my paintings.
Well, what I would recommend is stopping before you think it's done and then letting it sit. Because oftentimes I'll be frustrated by something and I'm just like, I've got this stuck in my craw that this painting is not working, and then I overdo it because I'm not seeing it with my right eyes. I'm seeing it with my frustration eyes because I've been painting it. So if I just let it be, and I come back to it the next day or a couple days later, like I put it away so I can't see it, and then I come back to it a few days later, then I will see it with like honesty instead of just seeing every little thing that's been annoying me about it.
Okay, I see Danny's question now.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Good.
on Amazon, there's a handmade rough 100% cotton loose paper with decal edges. Very inexpensive. Do you have any experience?
Do you know the brand? Is it by the company Shenzhen, maybe? If it's by Shenzhen, yes, and I like it. Or if it's by Nujabi, I've used that brand. Those are both really fun to use. They're very, very textured. So if you don't like the textured paper, you might not like it, but I like it. 100% cotton, you really can't, I mean, it should be pretty good if it's 100% cotton. You might run into that sizing issue that another viewer was talking about, having a paper with no sizing or the sizing went off. And in that case, you'd need to do something like add a sizing.
Cindy said that she cannot find your email.
My email address?
I don't know, it just says can't find your email either.
If you scroll down in the video description, there should be my email address, but it's artstudiosofbangor@yahoo.com. If you don't see it, on my blog, it should be on the About page too on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
When you get a paintbrush with a stray hair that pokes out, do you trim it or just leave it?
I cut it off. If I can't pull it out and it's not going back, I will just snip it. So what you want to think when you're painting these little bits of snow, just think of how the snow falls. It just kind of lands on some of the tips of the of our little branches here. We don't want to cover up everything. We have such a gorgeous color in there. We don't need to cover everything up. We just want to, it's like spring, it's like, imagine you just dusted some confectioner's sugar on a cupcake. You're just like accentuating it. And try not to make it very matchy. You want it to be random. I'm going to put a little bit on these little roofs, even though I did keep the, even though I did paint around the snow, it just gives us such a nice bright effect that.
I just finally started your landscape workshop. Did you add new tutorials like this one to the landscape library?
Oh, I can. I haven't done that yet, but I should probably go look through there, because I try to, in my subject classes, like the watercolor floral workshop and the landscape workshop, is make a directory in there that you can find, just to make it easier to find my YouTube tutorials, because it can be tough. You know, sometimes I'll search and I can't find a tutorial that I know I've done. So yeah, that's a good, I should do that during this quarantine-cation we all have. Check all that out, make sure everything's up to date. I will try to remember. And you can go, to get a little bit more scale, you can go in with a bigger brush to do, let's do a flat brush, that would be, make sure it's clean. Go in with a bigger brush if you want to do some of those snow bits on the foot and the rocks in the front here, because then you can just kind of lay it thick, and also a flat brush will give you more of a rocky shape. There aren't this many rocks in my reference photo. I just really like to paint rocks, which is an unpopular preference, I've heard. Alright, I do want to add a little shimmer in the water, not in the water, in the, on the streaks. It was a rainy, snowy day, so I want to get some of that shimmer. So what I need to do is really water down. This would be perfect for, like, an instance to use your watercolor white, but since I've used this bleed-proof white, I don't want to grab a different white in case it has a slightly different undertone. So I'm watering it down. Can you see on my brush there, you just see it's kind of like milky looking? It's like the consistency of water. It's not even like the consistency of like skim milk. It's really, really watery. And I'm just going to put some, oh, my hand was in the way. Sorry about that. I see what you mean now. I'm just trying to put some sheen on the road. Notice how light the sky is, so that's what's going to be reflected onto any wet surfaces. So we do have a little bit of a shadow from those trees, but we've got this kind of like sheen on the road that we'll do with that gouache. But turn your brush so you don't get like everything really samey. And then you can do just little like, these are going to dry a little bit more transparent, so when we have it really watered down, it's going to kind of freak you out because it'll look, oh my gosh, it's so opaque. It's not going to be. It's going to be very, when you've thinned it down, it's going to be very, very translucent. The thicker application is going to be opaque, but these thinner ones are not going to be. So don't worry if you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? That's way too light. Just chill. It'll be fine. Now, if I had a situation where I really royally messed up somewhere, and this has happened before when actually I was doing the cover of a book once, and I needed to add something. I needed to completely change something. I had to put something. It was on the cover for Sea Glass in the Lighthouse, and I needed to put a piece of sea glass on a rope around the dog's neck, like as a collar. And it was a black dog, and the dog didn't have any collar or anything on. So I actually used a product called Watercolor Ground by Daniel Smith, and I painted the sea glass, let it dry, then I was able to paint just as if I was painting on watercolor paper. So that's another option too, if you don't have white paint, or if you think you're going to want to paint over it in the future. So there's lots of different ways to get that white back. You do not, I mean, it's nice to reserve the white of the paper, but it's not necessary, and it's your painting. You can do whatever you want to do in your painting. I think I'm going to call this done. I'll sign this later with a pen because I am miserable at writing my name with a brush. Any final questions before we go?
No.
All right. Well, you can find my signature watercolor sets at jerrysartorama.com. There's a link in the video description. I will answer any questions that come up in the comments section. So like when after the stream is done, then there'll be comments just like any video. You can ask questions there or on my blog. And I will go and also if you need to email me, my email should be in the video. It should be in the video description as well. It's definitely it's not it's on the about page then. And yeah, I will go try to do all the things that I just said I would do. Anything to add, Maisie?
Thank you guys for coming. It was fun.
Thank you for being our moderator.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the moderators that were online today helping out. I do appreciate it, and I'm so glad you guys came back after such a long hiatus. Maybe we'll do it next week if you guys like this one. Then yeah, that'd be fun. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for taking a walk down memory lane with me and watching these old tutorials. Remember, I have thousands of previous tutorials that are all arranged in playlists on my channel, The Frugal Crafter. I hope you explore them and find some other gems that maybe you've forgotten about. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, happy crafting.